I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Mine was way down too.
What's going on?
Item 1 is public comments. Any
Sitting
public
here.
comments? No? Item number 2 is acceptance of minutes
FinCom.
of September 15th, 2015. Move to accept and approve the minutes of September 15th, 2015 as shown. Seconds.
Second.
Terrence? Any comments on the minutes from September 15th?
Yeah, because I have one comment. Becky, can we make one addition? I can grab the language for you. I'd just like to add the date. There was 2 comments I made. One was the date of the last time we raised the rates for sewer. And for the life of me, I can't remember what, I thought it was 2009. But let me check that and I can just get that comment to you. The second was just our quick description of the amount of money in the amount of we had discussed the amount of money currently in the retained earnings at, I want to say, $700,000 odd dollars. And I just brought up the 2 projects, the current emergency project and the other project currently on the books, that it would basically wipe that out. So I can give you the language, but I just wanted to have those 2 added.
Thank you.
And I didn't want to hold up the
Okay.
minutes any longer.
Okay, any more comments about the minutes of September 15th? Okay, move to accept and approve the minutes of September 15th as corrected. All in favor? Aye. Okay, item 3, the correspondence. Correspondence, item A through CC. Move to accept and approve the list of correspondence as shown, A through CC. And a second. We have a second.
Second.
Timothy. Okay, I have one question,
Yeah,
one comment about the correspondence. I never saw the the letter of resignation from the COA. Who resigned?
John Edson.
Yeah, that was in there. I saw it.
Okay, I just missed
Yeah,
it, but,
John Edson resigned. He took
okay.
another position though with an outside entity, but still in the same area.
All right, and then I have a question about one of the letters from someone in town, and the question was from Whiting Auto Body, and he was curious as to why he has an auto body shop in Maynard, yet he goes through Stowe and sees 2 town vehicles being repaired at an auto body shop in Stowe.
So the vehicles that are, at least I know one, the ambulance that was over there, I have a follow-up with the fire chief to see if he has another vehicle there. DPW does not, but it has to do with the type of repair needs and the certification of the garage and my understanding, the size of the bays to be able to service the particular vehicles.
Okay.
Is it the general policy of the town that when such services are needed, we look to town businesses first?
We try to, if it can be accommodated. We've done service at that location in the past. We've done service at Brown's Auto Body. Police fleet is serviced and maintained at Jarmo's in town. So where applicable, that's ideal. I don't know if there's a written policy to that,
So-
but certainly,
So can we just respond to this gentleman, so, at least we responded in some manner that there is a reason.
Yes.
Someone sees there's a reason. And then the last one, the keynote to go is a correspondence. Can you just explain exactly what that's telling us?
Well, the board has 21 days to submit an objection to that, to the Maynard mobile location. If they have any objections to locating Keno to
Is that a
go.
light item on the agenda tonight? The same issue?
Did we add
Well,
that as a?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
But- So we'll get to that in 12. Should we take it out of correspondence?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the packet as item 12 as well. And it was in as a communication and as an agenda item. I think what happened was, when Becky had prepared the correspondence, I afterwards had asked her to make it an agenda item as well, so.
Okay, so we'll take it out of the correspondence, and then we'll put it into the, we'll deal with it at 12.
Yep.
All right, and then, so, anybody else have any comments about the correspondence A through CC minus X?
No.
Okay? I don't know how else to put it. All right, so I move to accept and approve the list of correspondence A through CC with the exception of X, which has been removed. Any further comments? All those in favor? Thanks. The consent agenda is a special permit for one block party. We can motion to approve the consent item as shown. Any seconds?
Second.
David? Any comments? About the block party?
It's a repeat party, they've done it before.
All those in favor? Okay. All right, item 5. Retirement Board member appointment, Kevin Peterson. Kevin, come on up.
Good, how are you?
Hey,
Okay. All right,
So you're already thinking about retirement, wow.
Yeah, so the motion is to accept and approve the appointment of Kevin Peterson to the Retirement Board, and the term is indefinite. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Comments, and we'll get to questions for Kevin. I have one before we start, and maybe it's just housekeeping, maybe it's just I read too much, I don't know. But there's in the packet that I have, there's a letter from legal, and they suggest that they don't have a problem with it, but that you should tell us, tell me if I'm wrong, right, that you've seen that letter?
Yes.
He should
Yeah,
tell
I
us-
requested a legal opinion from
Right.
counsel, just to clarify, with Kevin's position, and making sure there was no issues. It was noted that it's common practice, a lot of retirement boards actually do have town employees that are not the ex officio members that serve. Their recommendation essentially, in their opinion, is that it's okay as a resident to serve in the resident-appointed position, but that he should file a disclosure prior to
Okay.
appointment, prior to getting sworn in, a disclosure with town clerk.
Okay, so I'm okay with that, so you understand that, right?
Yep.
So we just have to get that bit of,
Yep.
that bit of paperwork cleaned up before you get sworn in, and then we're good, right? That's what the letter says.
Yes, yeah, and then specifically, just so, from an ethical standpoint, Kevin himself, if something specific that was to pertain to him that he was voting on, that he would just abstain from any vote like that.
Okay.
But as far as the board piece for appointment, it's advised just to file a disclosure.
Okay, so that was my only comment, was the question about that, and it just wants to make sure that was done, so.
I got a quick
I
question.
will let everybody else that has any questions ask. David?
Yeah, Kevin, is this a paid position?
Is not.
It's not, okay. And, the only issue I would have is, is relative to any potential conflicts, and I think you're aware exceedingly. Are you currently in the retirement plan at this point?
Yeah.
You are, okay. That's all.
Okay.
So the public is aware, the position that had been advertised, this is one of the position we're referencing is one that is a Board of Selectmen resident appointment position. It's been advertised for several months now through a variety of outlets seeking interest. We have not had any interest. Kevin is a Maynard resident, and that's why you have that letter of interest that he submitted to the board. But we had pushed it off because we did want to get some legal clarifications prior to tonight's meeting, and as we described, that's what's recommended.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would just say thank you for volunteering. I know you already have a full-time paying job, so
Yeah.
this is great that you want to get involved with the town. And it seems very important to you, so I thank you, and I wish you well, of course.
Thank you.
And I know you do your best to make sure you represent everybody in town appropriately.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jason?
Kevin, since we dragged you in here,
Yeah.
why don't you go ahead and tell us, what are you interested in
Why am I interested in the position?
the position?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity, and it could be a great experience for me to learn more about the retirement system. And if I ever become town accountant here or another town and I have to serve, I'll already be familiar with the system and how it works.
Okay, so
Great,
he wants
thank
to
you.
push Mike out the door?
I saw him pull out his collar as soon as you said that.
Mike just did one of these, but don't let that bother you. Okay. Any questions, Tim, for Kevin?
No, Jason took my question, but thank you for willing to serve, Kev.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody? Jason, David,
Almost done.
Terrence, Tim?
Good to go.
Okay, all those in favor? Point. Thank you again,
All right,
Kevin, and good luck with the
Thank you very much.
retirement board.
Thanks, Kev.
Thank you. Okay, item number 6, 9 DPW abatements. So a little bit of history on the abatements. This is the second time it's been on the agenda. We pulled it off the first time because I think everybody had some questions as to the information that was in the abatements that we received. Seemed like there was no explanation for most of them, or the explanations were fuzzy at best. So Kevin and I sat with Chris Okafor and Marie. Chris and Marie?
Yes.
So we sat with Chris and Marie and went through them, and just for the board and for anybody else that's interested, all 9 of these came down to issues with the equipment, the meters and such, and the program that reads the meters. So Kevin, Chris Okafor explained to us that they had gone through and had fixed all these townwide, or so they thought, and these 9 were items that didn't get repaired when the rest of the other items were repaired. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. When we had done the conversion for our financial software, we had a number of them that were addressed and were fixed. Because, we only do quarterly readings, so it's taken some cycles to get everything in good shape. These 9 were actual additional ones that had unique circumstances that were tied to within the software that has been addressed. So they were accounting, software issues in the billing.
Okay. So that being said, each of the 9 abatement requests are issues according to, and in the opinion of the Department of Public Works, based on faulty meters or the faulty program within the meter reading system. So we'll go through them one at a time and just approve or disapprove them, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question, quick
Okay.
comment on, after reading through it. What are we doing to make sure that this software problem doesn't continue to happen?
We've met with representatives, including the CEO of SoftWrite, several times. Maynard has a lot of unique situations in our billing that is not, it's not across the board in any generic community. So there's a lot of specifics, if you will, that are directly related to Maynard that had to be manually be adjusted and get right, and it's taken some tweaks, but I think, the billing as a whole now, I think, is in good shape. But we have had to sit down, have several meetings with SoftWrite folks and the software company to work those through.
How do we decipher, and forgive me because I wasn't at the meeting, how do we decipher that it was a software problem? How do we rebate the right amount? Because if I'm reading through the abatements and the letters that people sent in, it was clear that some people had done things that one woman had left a hose on, some other person had a toilet that was running long-term. So that's not a software problem. So how are we ensuring that we're actually making sure that they're paying for only what they use versus not what the software is telling them is a problem?
Right.
That's my concern going forward, because if we're having this 9 now, let's just say we're not gonna have another 9 next quarter or 10 next quarter, right? And
Right.
we're continuously doing this.
Yeah, the abatements that were recommended factor in that it's not the full bill. It wasn't adjustment of, the admitted or known leaks, repairs, things like that. It was the adjustment in the calculations that the software specifically would have had issues with, not the use.
Okay. So specifically, each one of these, we looked at it and
Right.
we're not abating the entire bill?
Correct.
Okay.
It's tough to interpret based on, and we talked to Chris about that. Both Chris and I talked to Mr. Okafor about how, those could have been written differently because it appears as, as the whole bill. But what we don't see is the actual, we see the SoftWrite printout is what you have. You don't actually see the Kelly and Ryan sewer bill, which has asterisks and other identifiable things that you don't see on the SoftWrite piece of it. The actual bill itself was a little bit different, but the way that the memos were prepared, it made it seem like we were abating water break, or a consistent leak or something along that lines.
Kevin, while we're on this topic, sort of before we get into the specifics of each bill, as water commissioners, it is our sole responsibility, is it not, to abate or not abate a bill?
Correct. Yeah.
I'm concerned because I see that in the memo that Chris sent out to us late last night or early today, whenever it was we received it, it says that Chris Okafor chose to deny abatement requests on 4 different bills. And I'm wondering how that happens if somebody files for an abatement, why it doesn't even get to us. He's denied it.
Yeah,
It's not his role to deny it. I believe it's our role to deny it or accept it.
No, all the abatements are, that's the first layer. All the abatements are approved by the DPW. When they're denied, the appeals come to the
Okay,
to the
so
Board of
what we
Selectmen.
see when they get here is just the appeal of the
Yeah,
denial
more
that's
often
already
than
come
not,
through.
what you have before you is mostly approvals. And what we typically see are the denials where it is, okay, look, we went in, we identified that you had a running toilet or whatever the case may be, and I'm denying it. And then they would say, well, when we have a valid issue, and then
I
they
understand,
would
okay.
request an appeal before the board.
Okay,
So if he denies it and they don't appeal it, it stays at that, that's where it stays.
got it, okay. I was concerned because, and again, maybe it's the language in the letter. I'm also concerned when, in the letter where he says to people that I have, and I'll find it, where it says, I've made a recommendation, and I'm forwarding that recommendation to the town administrator for processing, or to the Board of Selectmen, or whatever. It sort of puts us under the gun, because now we're the bad guys if we say no. He should say, I believe that there may be an issue with your bill, I will recommend that it be reviewed by the board, but not put a dollar amount in. That's because that's our decision, to make the dollar amount decision and to affirm it or deny it, but not Chris's. This is the way I see it, for Chris to say, I am recommending to the Board of Selectmen regarding your August 1st, 2015 bill that they abate your water bill in the amount of $278.20 and the sewer bill in the amount of $325.60 for a total of. He's now put us in the position where if we say no to the whole thing, we're the bad guys.
Yeah, it's specific like that because you're not gonna know the dollar amount. He has to give you the dollar amount because it's the software piece, it's not the whole total bill. So it's the calculation.
So in a normal letter, just say this isn't a software issue, it's somebody who says I have an issue with my
Right.
water or sewer bill. Would he give a dollar amount?
No, they usually request an abatement amount, and then everyone we've ever seen has been a denial.
Yeah, that's why,
I've
that's why I'm
never
confused,
seen
because it's the
that.
first time I've seen dollar
Right,
amounts
and the
go up.
dollar amounts are very specific because of what we were just discussing, that it's not the total bill. There was still water used, and there was, in some cases, there was water used and repairs that were needed.
Yeah. Well, so I have one of the denials in front of me because somebody gave it to me. A person who was denied gave me their letter to look at. And it doesn't, nowhere on the letter does it tell them, please feel free to call or write back with any additional questions. It doesn't say anywhere that they have the opportunity to appeal this to anybody, which is a little bit of an issue. You know, the 4 people that got denied should have the opportunity to appeal if that's the system that's in place. This particular letter doesn't say that.
Right. I would agree with that.
There's no dollars amount, it just said, on this particular one, they went out and did some meter reading, tracked the meter and everything else, and found that it was accurate, and they denied it. And there's some other history behind this particular one, but the letter itself is the issue, that they should probably let the 4 people know there is an avenue to appeal it.
That's fair.
And then we could be the bad guys, if it comes to it. But
Yeah, it should be noticed of the appeal right before the Water Sewer Commissioners.
Okay, so in just following up on David's point, if there's an appeal, I would assume if there's an appeal, that when the appeal is to be heard, it's heard here in one of these meetings, and that, both the DPW and the appealing party is gonna appear.
Correct.
Okay, so,
And
That's what's happened in
that's
the past.
often what
Okay.
is before the board.
okay, so I think they need to correct these letters and make sure that the 4 people know that they have an opportunity to appeal if they wish. But, anybody else, any questions, comments before we move on to the 9 different items? Okay, all right. The first one is, you guys have it in front of you in Dropbox. Move to accept and approve the request ID 2799, not calculating properly. Water abatement for any comments or discussion on that particular one?
Yeah, I guess my concern goes back to Terrence's point, where how the heck do we know what the actual number is supposed to be?
Well, it's in on the abatement was for $603.40 in total. The total bill was $803.60, and the new bill was $200.20.
And I guess the question that I have, and I know Kevin explained that it's due to some type of software error, but how do we know that the software error was calculated correctly? How did,
Trust in your staff.
are we doing an average of bills, or how are we coming up with a number? What number did they choose?
I don't know. I didn't get into that level of detail.
I'm going to assume that they're doing it correctly. I just have some misgivings, having been in the software
Mr.
field.
Chair, can we ask the treasurer
Sure.
collector to speak?
The way the calculation happened was the usage numbers were right, so it was very easy for us to just plug that into the formula and find out what they should have been billed.
Okay.
So if you did the calculation, it didn't come close to what the original bill was showing. So
Okay. Quick question. How do we know that there aren't others out there that were missed, and that the and that the resident isn't, you know, sitting there scurrying over their bills to do the calculations because they believe, they trust in our administration.
Right. We had SoftWrite, the software company, when we showed them what the problem was, and Kevin was right, there was a little asterisk on it, which seemed to be, they were jumping and not calculating it right.
Kelly and Ryan bill that actually went to the homeowner had the asterisk,
Not the ones you can see.
not what
I
you
guess.
see from the SoftWrite.
So we had SoftWrite search through all of the bills, and these are the ones they came up with.
But there were others that were corrected on their next bill without having an abatement filed. There were others that were corrected without this step.
So we did search for all of them that had the problem, and as far as we know, we captured them all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Cheryl. All right, I'm satisfied. That's me.
Tim?
This one in Chris's recommendations or the memo, I'm not seeing it was a software issue. From what I'm reading, it's the meter did not read properly. So would that be on the homeowner or us?
If there's a meter reading issue, it's our issue.
2799?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's calling he's calling them all basically a meter reading or a calculation reading. I think he's calling them all the same thing, but I spoke to Marie and Chris, and they both assured me that they were, calculation errors, math errors more than anything else. And the meters were all mostly working properly.
Okay.
So 2799, any further comments? All those in favor of approving this abatement? In favor? 5-0. Okay, second one is number 694. Move to accept and approve the request ID 694. Just Durant Ave, 40 Durant Ave. Was billed at $586.93, and the correct billing should have been $173.28. Any comments on this particular abatement?
Just out of curiosity, how high was the bill that we didn't amend, it looks like there was inherited the property from elderly folks, and they hadn't paid the bill. Do we have an idea of what the dollar amount was for that versus what we're actually?
I don't. No. I don't know. This is what,
Previous one, right here.
3418.
So 3418 was the charge, and
Yeah.
so I don't have the amount we're doing in front of me here. So what do we?
With service fees and interest, it was $4,180.29
Total, yeah.
total.
And what do we ask to be abating? I don't see that number in front of me, so.
This was,
Yeah, there's a couple of, we have the spreadsheet, or the packet sheets, and then we have the memo from Chris from the other day, so it's difficult to toggle between the two.
but this is for only one particular portion of that bill. And this particular portion of the bill that they addressed was $586.93, and it should have been $173.28. It wasn't the whole bill, because that whole bill was for an extended period of time.
Okay.
So Terrence, is your question, what happened to the rest of the bill, was that paid?
Yeah, I wanted to get a ratio between what we were actually abating here, because it made me a little bit nervous where someone's inheriting a house and someone hadn't paid their bill for quite a while. So I want to make sure we're using the same ratio and the same logic in the equation to make sure we're actually getting what we're owed versus what was an issue. So I'm not 100% comfortable that we're doing that consistently, but maybe as we go through a couple of these, you can make me feel a little more comfortable.
He's paid over $2,500 in the course of the last year, according to the homeowner, towards the water bill.
All right.
Any other questions about this one, or? All those in favor of approving number 694? Okay, I move to accept and approve the request ID number 2083, the meter not calculating properly. This one was billed at 902.91, and should have been billed at $571.64. And this is, I think this is the one that raised the most questions for everybody, and they did pay a portion of the higher bill towards whatever water leak they had. And then the abatement was based only on the errors that the software found in their calculations. So, anybody with any questions or comments on this bill?
So, this is the one, again, Bill, I'm making sure I'm at the right bill number here.
2083. Jones.
Got it. Give me a sec, please.
Can we, it's a point of order, can we get these in order next time, in the sheet that comes in? It would be much easier to see the numerical order of each of these abatement numbers or these bill numbers. It would make it much easier to follow instead of jumping through pages.
Well,
Yours is maybe in a
well,
different order.
this is in order, but that letter came from one source. That's not the source
Yeah.
that the agenda came from. So it's from two different sources.
All right.
Yeah, the packet's in order with the ID numbers, but the memo is not. Correct.
Okay, so, all those in favor of approving ID 2083? Okay, move to accept and approve the request ID number 3035. Again, a miscalculating meter issue. And the original bill was in the amount of $902.13, and the adjusted bill is $477.08.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other comments? Any comments for this one? 3035. Okay, all those in favor? Move to accept and approve request ID number 1961, not calculating properly. Second. Anybody want to second that one?
Second.
Any comments on this one? This one, the original bill was at $111.27, and the adjusted bill was $11.26. All those in favor of approving abatement 1961?
One question on that, if I may. I was struck on this one, Kevin. When did this abatement request come through? Because I see the billing date on that particular bill is a year ago. And if the request came through, I'm sure there's a deadline on when somebody can make their request. And if the request came through and we're not seeing it till now, where's the breakdown and how do we fix it?
It says,
Yeah, I think that one's a relatively old one. I
Well, it's a
think,
year. The billing date is
Yeah.
10/1/14. Today is 6/15.
the abatement.
Yeah, I think
There's
The
a few of them in there.
Well, the request came in on October 15th, 2014, the original request.
And that's my point. Why are we just seeing it now, a year later? Where's the breakdown as to why it doesn't get to the board?
There is no breakdown. It's just,
You don't
I
think,
agree.
you don't think
I
it's-
agree that it's problematic, that it took so long, but you're asking Kevin for a breakdown, like no one's gonna have an answer as to why, and the answer lies with Chris Okafor, and we can ask him another time, but Kevin's not gonna have any information
Then my
here.
point here would be,
Why?
let's address, Kevin's the administrator, Kevin has the responsibility towards making sure that these things are corrected.
We've
So I
already
would-
had the conversation with.
Excuse me?
We already had the conversation with Chris.
Okay.
And I think some of them were held because they were trying to figure out the issue with them.
'Cause, you know,
With
I make my points often about customer service and whatever. In my business, if there was something pending for a year, somebody would be in trouble. Somebody would have, and
you'd lose a
apparently
cus- you'd lose a customer.
apparently you've spoken to Kevin, I mean, to Chris, so, but if something's pending for a year, something's not working right, and we should look to fix that breakdown. That's what I meant by the breakdown.
Okay, move to accept and approve request ID number 1102, again, a calculation issue. The original bill was for $994.33. The adjusted bill is $418.86. Any comments, a second on this one?
Second.
Any comments on Bill 1102? No comments? All those in favor of approving it? 1102? Okay. Next one is move to accept and approve the request ID 3294, a calculation problem again. And the original bill was $535.71, and the adjusted bill is $206.15. And this was at the Boys and Girls Club. Any comments or questions for this one? No?
Did we second it yet?
No, no
I'll
one
second
seconded it. Okay. So, no comments on this, concerns? All those in favor of approving this abatement? Okay. The next one is move to accept and approve the request ID number 1230, a calculation issue. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments on this one? The original bill was $841.25, and the adjusted bill is $535.57. No questions. Okay, so all those in favor of accepting this abatement, or approving this abatement? And the last one is move to accept and approve request ID 2380, miscalculating meter, and that is, do we have a second for that?
Which one was that, Chris?
2380 is the last one.
Okay, I see it listed as 2083 in here. Is that the 3 Michael Road one?
No, this is Great Road, 204 Great Road, 2308, 2380.
2390 on the memo.
Okay, yeah, just a typo again, all right.
Second it.
Okay, any comments on this one? The bill, I don't know if I said it or not, but the bill went from $771.61 down to $436.66. Any comments about that invoice? Okay, all those, yeah. Go ahead.
The bill under consideration was $777. Their prior bill was $75. So it was off by a factor of 10, which is way out of line with all the other ones you're looking at. So it feels like the abatement should be much bigger.
All I know is that this was, corrected the same way as the other 8 through the software company, and that was the number that they came up with. I don't know what period this was for, or what other factors played into it, but I don't disagree with
Do we
them.
have a copy of the bill, or do we just have the comment that it says it's stated it went up 10 times?
I don't have this bill.
You
Do you have this
copy
bill?
of it?
I have the usage report.
Is it
It's substantially higher, yeah.
from the previous bill, or just in history?
History.
Can we ask that be reviewed again by staff and bring it back at a,
Review, well, the usage report, the usage went up considerably, right?
Yeah. That's why I don't, the current read.
To the resident's point, if a historical water bill is at a certain level and it jumps that much, and there's no factors that make it, that it should do that, did they put a pool in and fill a pool? I don't know. I mean, so, I guess I'm not really comfortable signing off on that one right there, because that could be a potential issue for us. So maybe we should just, I would advocate we take this one off and not rule on this one and bring it back at a different time, until the DPW can tell us exactly what may have caused that. 'Cause I don't know how you use that much water unless you just leave water on for a week at a time. And I'm
I agree,
positive that
Terrence.
didn't happen. Unless somebody's playing a cruel joke on them.
Happens, yeah. I mean, the water went through the meter. I don't know, that's what they're showing as a, they don't indicate that they made any repairs, but the water, the way it shows is the reading showed the water was used.
Subsequent bills, do we have that to refer to? Is the water usage still at that level?
No.
No, it's,
There's one period, 1 3-month period where it jumped from prior periods were 835, 1575, 830, 815, 995, 1020, and it jumped to 5,500 in one period, and then it went back down, but I don't know if there was a leak or something like that, but
I would feel better tabling this one. That's my own opinion.
okay.
Did we second that one?
Yep, it was seconded.
You wanna
All right,
vote?
any other comments on it? Well, we'll vote, and if we vote no, then we just vote no, and we'll have them, we'll have it reworked.
Is it allowable if we vote no on an abatement request to come back?
I just need to take no action.
That's the point.
Okay, we'll do that too. All right, so we're gonna take no action on this one.
And can
Send
you
it back.
maybe clear, it's 2380, not 2390, right?
Yep, 2380, 204 Great Road. Yeah, the rest of these have to be signed. Those all have to be signed.
You pulled the one that,
Yep. Okay, item 7, discussion with Special Counsel John Whitten and the people from 129 Parker Street. That's the one I didn't do anything with.
Trip was all right. Not too bad, not too bad. The other one was bad. Yeah.
We should have left this for last on the agenda. We're gonna have a vacuum out of here pretty soon,
What?
when this is over. I'm gonna fade into the sunset.
Good.
Eight, all right. Okay, where would we like to begin?
So, Mr. Chair, we're at a point now where we're following up with some of the activities that have occurred over the last several weeks with regards to Attorney Witten and the developer and their attorney in some town officials' review of some proposed NBOD bylaw revisions, which you have a copy of in Dropbox. And Attorney Witten's going to walk us through some of the proposed changes and some of the recommendations for such.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good evening.
Good evening.
I've spoken with Angelo. We've met with Angelo. The town planner, Andrew, and I met with Angelo and his client last week. And what the board has before it is a red line draft, including all of our historic comments. So it's a bit garbled, but it shows kind of the progression of the discussion with the applicant. And, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to walk the board through it at a kind of superficial level or get into detail, whatever would be the board's pleasure. Angelo sent an email this morning that I suspect he's going to want to address with the board's permission regarding some adjustments. So I would ask that the board treat it as a draft, but a draft that has been moved forward to this point for your consideration to get back to the parties and let us fine-tune it further. So it's a draft that we feel is credible for your review and for the public's review as well.
If I may, you mentioned a red line version, and we got two different documents. One has a bunch of lines on it. There are red marks on it that says Bill Nemser on it. A lot of them, it says font, not bold, but I don't see any real commentary.
These are the comments.
Okay,
So those were by John.
I got you.
And Bill's mostly was formatting, and then if you
Okay.
go through, you'll see here, you'll see spotted in there.
Got it,
Some other
okay, all
comments.
right. Thank you, John.
Sure. It is, because we wanted to give the board the full history of the comments, it is confusing to look at the red lines, so we did send along a clean version as well. So whatever would be the board's pleasure. Again, I'm happy, Mr. Chairman, to talk about it from 1,000 miles up, or, and then respond to your questions, or discuss it in detail.
I imagine some people in the room might want to have a little bit better than the 10,000 square foot view, a 10,000 foot view, so we might as well just walk right through the whole.
Sure.
Let's walk right
Sure,
through. We'll
be
go right
happy
through
to, Mr. Chairman, and perhaps interrupt me as we go along.
If I may, I just would like to have a copy in front of me of whatever one you're going to use,
I think we're going with the one that says clean.
but I don't have that. I don't know what you gave to the board.
So,
That's fine, we'll get you a copy.
yeah, the board.
Okay. Just so I can follow along exactly, because I know you and I went back and forth with multiple changes, and,
So maybe I could just start with this comment, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the detail. So the draft is an overlay district, and town meeting is familiar with the overlay districts in the past. But an overlay district is designed to treat a particular resource or a particular area of the town differently than the underlying district. So it's like a bedspread over a blanket. It overlays the underlying district. The way this is drafted is the more restrictive provisions apply, or in this case, the allowances of the NBOD apply in this particular area, but nowhere else. So if I'm in an NBOD, I can proceed with the allowances by right or by special permit. If I'm not, I can't. So whereas this overlays the underlying district, which is industrial, in the NBOD, there are uses and structures that are allowed that would not otherwise be allowed in the industrial district. The other macro comment is the table of uses is being altered to allow some uses by right, but the majority of uses by special permit. And the special permit criteria for the planning board, which would be the special permit granting authority, is spelled out both in the bylaw, your zoning bylaw, as well as within the NBOD. When a special permit is offered up for an applicant, the burden of proof is on the applicant, and the special permit criteria that the planning board can impose are significant, because it's not a use by right. So the way this is drafted, there are uses by right, but they're few. The uses by special permit require a burden on the applicant to demonstrate the protection of the neighborhood, the protection of health, safety, and welfare, general considerations including traffic, stormwater runoff, and so on. So that's the overview, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the mechanics of how it would work. The requirements of a concept plan, which is what town meeting had previously approved, is part of this draft. It's a little more robust, it's a little more fine-tuned, but the concept plan would have to be approved by town meeting, and the concept plan would lay out the four corners of the project. And town meeting, the legislative body, would have to approve it. Once approved, then the applicant can move forward with uses by right, structures by right, uses by special permit to the planning board. But the concept plan drives the end result. So instead of the tail wagging the dog, individual uses are applied for, the concept plan is the dog. The concept plan lays it out, and then specific uses and structures have to be applied for by special permit. So that original premise that you had developed years ago is here. Town meeting has to approve the concept plan. The other thing town meeting has to do, thank you. The other thing town meeting has to do in this draft, and it's a draft that we just started from a conversation we had last week, town meeting has to approve a sign plan. Now, the sign plan can be amended in part by the planning board, but the way it's drafted now, town meeting is the only one who could authorize the pylon sign, the announcement sign on Parker Street, which essentially would be a big sign. So that's the part and parcel of the concept plan and the obligation of town meeting. The requirements of the concept plan are spelled out, including the concept, of course, the design, but also impacts, most notably traffic impacts and infrastructure impacts from the proposed project. So that's section 9.3.3. Then the draft goes on to enumerate uses by right and uses by special permit. So if it says permitted principal use, the applicant would not need a special permit. It's a use by right. And the important point there is if it's a use by right, the town cannot say no to the use if the applicant meets the underlying conditions of zoning. So the building commissioner will have no authority to deny the project, deny the application if it meets the underlying requirements. That's the big distinction between a use by right and a use by special permit. Only town meeting can determine what goes where. So this is laid out for the Board of Selectmen's review, lists some uses by right and many by special permit. 9.3.6 is permitted accessory uses, accessory to the principal use. Can't have an accessory use if you don't have a principal use. So 9.3.6 dovetails with 9.3.5. And then 9.3.7, uses by special permit with the criteria that the planning board would impose. It's worth noting that special permits in Massachusetts are discretionary. They're not a requirement. An applicant is not entitled to a special permit. That's the phrase special, and the applicant has to earn the special permit pursuant to the requirements of the bylaw. In addition, the special permit granting authority can impose conditions and requirements prior to the issuance of a special permit. And then finally, because it's a special permit, as long as the conditions and the decision isn't arbitrary, the special permit granting authority can deny the use or structure. So in this case, the concept plan sets up the big picture, the applicant provides a concept plan, and then the special permit granting authority, the planning board, negotiates with the applicant on those special permit uses.
I have a quick question on the legality of a denial of a special permit. Does the planning board in that situation have to have any, does there have to be a reason? Does there have to be a rationale? Does it have to be, and what are the basis upon which they can make that reason or rationale?
It's a great question. A special permit can be denied, but like anything else in land use law, it can only be denied for a rational basis. So the planning board would have to have reasons for denying the special permit, just like it has to have reasons for conditioning the special permit or extracting land or money as an offset for the impact of a special permit use.
So I guess then the follow-up question that I would ask is what is the benefit of the community or the town in even putting a special permit opportunity on the list if it's something that the town or community really doesn't want in that particular location?
Well, again, another good question. Special permits are typically those things you want, but with an added level of review. So if there was a use or structure on this list by special permit that town meeting or the Board of Selectmen wouldn't want, no matter what, then it shouldn't be on the list. Oh, absolutely. Because you're telegraphing to the applicant or their successor, this is a possibility, and this is something I could get if I comport with the bylaw. If it's not something you would tolerate under any circumstance, it shouldn't be on the list.
Having said that, the one thing that jumped out at me, and I know I'm moving ahead in the list, but the one thing that jumped out at me that was quite clear during our visioning sessions after the failure of the proposal the last time at town meeting, and then during the subsequent meetings that were held with the ad hoc committee, was that a fast food restaurant is not something that the town, based on those conversations, that the town really wanted to consider at that location. It was very clear at the visioning sessions. It was very clear during, in my opinion, for them, and those that were on the committee can mention further, but very clear at the, during the ad hoc committee. And I see that that's on the list, and that's why I prefaced the first question with, if it's something we don't want, why put it on the list? So
Yeah, if the use,
Hey, real quick.
Of course.
Attorney Whitney, for you. What are we constituting the definition as of fast
That's
food
the
restaurant?
trick, that's the
All right,
trick.
so are we lopping it into the McDonald's and the Burger King, the Taco Bell worlds? Or are we talking about the Paneras, which I know there's many people in town moving, clamoring for things like that?
Yeah, that's
which
the
really
trick.
is a fast food.
That's
So
the trick.
what's the definition for some of these terms, right? That would be more helpful for me to understand as well.
no, and the bylaw does provide terms for the linkage to the NBOD. If it's providing for a fast food restaurant, for example, that the board found not acceptable, or town meeting found not acceptable, either remove the fast food allowance or revise the definition.
Yeah, and to Terrence's point, totally on board with that. And to be clear, the feedback that came from those visioning sessions and from the ad hoc committee was pertaining to the type, the primary type that you mentioned, the McDonald's, the Wendy's, the Burger Kings, the Kentucky Fried Chickens. Those types of things were the comments that people clearly, and again, it's protective of the project, because you want to be able to move the project forward and not have people objecting to these things.
And part of it, and this is important in the overall picture, is the concept plan would give town meeting the vision of what the applicant's proposing. So that would be step one. The other is the development agreement, which the applicant, the memorandum of agreement that the applicant's going to enter into with the Board of Selectmen, is another protection for the town. So it maybe you'll find tolerable fast food type restaurant A, but not B, C, and D. So contractually, the applicant can be bound to that.
We can be protected on that.
Town meeting can agree to it through the legislative process. So, but I agree, the more macro question is, if you're not comfortable with the articulated use here, and town meeting rejects it, then no, it shouldn't be here. Because 10 years from now, an applicant's going to say, hey, here it is.
That's right.
You wanted it.
Thank you.
So that's uses by right, that's uses by special permit. And then there's the table of gross square footage, and that, for the most part, is not applicable here because the NBOD is really treating this as a mixed-use project with mixed uses of different square footages. We spent a fair bit of time on the housing cap, that's 9.3.10, and the draft that the board has in front of it says 176 units. You approved 175 when I was here before you last with Angelo. The 176 is a result of a conversation we had so that 10% of 176 would be 18. 10% of 175 is 17 and a half, and the difference is the rounding up. So I'm fully aware that the Board of Selectmen has not endorsed 176.
Sorry, did we not round up 0.5 to the next dollar?
Well, my opinion is you would.
That's what I learned in math.
So
Is there new math that supersedes that?
Well, perhaps council will clarify that for the board tonight, and then we can go back to 175. But, so that's where that came from. And so that's the number of housing units with the percentage of below market. And then there's an extensive discussion of site plan review and lighting. And I should say, the way this is drafted, the way you had it originally and still here, is the site plan review is for everything. Uses by right and uses by special permit. So even if it's a permitted use by right, no special permit, there's still the requirement to go through site plan review. And site plan review, the way this is written, is a requirement. It's not something that can be passed over. And that would include the issue of lighting as well. And then the last section, other than the definitions, is 9.3.12. And that, I think all of us, Angelo and I, and Kevin and Bill and Andrew would agree, is new. You haven't seen this before, we're working on it. And it's really the product of a conversation we had only a week ago, which is, how are we going to deal with signs? The neighborhood or the public at large, the Board of Selectmen is going to be concerned about signs. So the proposal here is, town meeting approves the concept plan, which includes a sign plan. Town meeting will approve the pylon sign, and pylon meaning the exterior sign, the tall sign, subject to height limitations. But the planning board, during site plan review, can work on the details with the applicant as to where the sign will go on the particular building. But we had a long conversation, I think a very productive conversation with Angelo and his client on the importance of an integrated sign plan, a holistic sign plan, so it's not different fonts, different colors, different styles. And I think we've reached an agreement on that, although again, we're still in a tentative fashion. That's what this language suggests. Concept plan is part of the sign plan. Town meeting is the one that would approve it. Planning board can move, can tweak it, with the exception of the big pylon plan. So that's it, Mr. Chairman. There are definitions that follow, but I don't, unless the board would like to go through those, they really fit in to help define some of the uses the applicant seeks, including the continuing care program. But other than that, I want to thank Angelo and his client for being very cooperative, and I think we've made a lot of progress, and that's what brings us to you tonight.
Chris, I have one question I wouldn't mind asking. Do we ever decide which term we're going to use, assisted living versus independent living? Are we going to use them both? I know there's some debate last time we met about these terms, right?
So, yeah, good question. And that 9313 still has the phrase assisted living and continuing care. So it's, maybe I'll defer to, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, defer to Angelo to answer that. My opinion is, from what I've learned, is we need both definitions.
Okay.
Angelo, do you want to?
Certainly. Well, there's a couple of comments that I wanted to make, but on that issue, we have a prospective tenant, a very strong prospective tenant, who I believe might have even sent Kevin some of their overview of what they want to build at this location. And it's really it's more of a continuing care retirement facility in which they provide housing and some services. They don't provide health care services. They provide food, they provide transportation, they provide some sort of socialization, and they spell out in quite some detail what the services are they provide. That is different than assisted living, which by its very nature includes some level of health care. And so in negotiating with this tenant, who is very anxious to get this over with and get into this community, we recommended at their request that we have a specific definition for a continuing care community, which would allow what they generically call congregate living. They are proposing a 62 and over age-restricted dwelling and I forget the number of bedrooms in theirs, was
142 suites.
142 suites, which fits in with what we had discussed at prior meetings in terms of number, and that all of these folks that live there would be having their meals, okay, in the facility. And again, with all the other services that the facility would provide. So there's the difference between a congregate care or CCRC and assisted living. So that's why we asked that specific definition be put in. In reviewing the materials that this tenant provided to us today, and I think this is probably a good time to discuss it, we learned that the building that they propose to build, even though it may be 3 stories of residences, is probably somewhat taller than 3 stories. So one of the requests that we just raised with John this morning was that our suggestion that for the residential component of this NBOD, that an applicant be allowed to construct a building up to 4 stories tall.
Would that include non-continuing care retirement
Yes, that would include,
Goes completely against what we've discussed for 3 years.
that I'm not aware of. I
Well, when
mean,
we've had our discussions, there was always discussion about the heights and concerns about the heights. So that could be problematic and from my perspective.
Well, I think that what we need to do then is to really get down into more detail, perhaps even with the building inspector, because part of the issue was not necessarily having more than 3 floors of living area, but
The height.
facades, a cupola, decorative things, I mean, other, things that may take it above 3 stories that aren't really 3 stories of living. But if that was a concern to the board and to the town, it's certainly something that we could address, but we felt that it should be addressed in this so that everyone, the applicant, the town, and the planning board knows what are the dimensional requirements of the residential aspects of it.
Yeah, I know that was a lengthy discussion, my recollection is anyway, and there are members of that committee that are here, but that was a lengthy discussion among that ad hoc committee relative to the height and the concerns that people had about the heights of the buildings.
Is your question about, David, just the height itself of the building, and were we taking into account the aesthetics and the design and
I
stuff like
think-
that may?
Well, I think the conversation at the time actually included the aesthetic aspects of it, because that was part of the whole discussion.
Well, and that's why I think it's important that we deal with this now and get it into the MBOD, and so that everyone knows what it's going to be. That is why we asked this tenant to provide you with some of the details of the proposed structure. And again, these were only circulated late last week.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that people didn't have a whole lot of time to digest them. But when you look at what is being proposed, particularly by this tenant, it's very attractive. And, 8 or 9 feet higher may seem like a lot, but I think you have to look at it in context, and it probably isn't. But again, we haven't had time to digest it. We need to sit down at least one more time. We'd like to get the building inspector involved also, because we may be able to come down with something that satisfies
Yeah.
everybody.
The other observation I would make, if I may, is on the continuing care retirement community, the way you described it, 62, I mean, I'm getting close to being eligible, and that's, that's not, again, when we talk about what the discussions were from the community members, when we talked about the assisted care, and I think that there was the general tenor and the general spirit of the discussion was older people that may not be driving, that may not bring in the extra vehicles, et cetera, into the property. That was the general spirit of that discussion.
And that's, I'm going to hand this out, that's exactly what they're saying here. Typically, they're residents in their late 70s or 80s.
Oh, then I'm not close
Restaurants.
to being eligible.
Right, so now I'm going to hand, if I can hand this
Well,
out, which is a little further description of what they're looking to do there.
What the definition attempts to do, though, is to not handcuff the definition of CCRC for other locations in town. I mean, this one does not even require, by definition, it doesn't require age restriction. Okay, so in a different setting, okay, someone can apply for a CCRC that serves a different need. We personally don't have any objection to having an age restriction in the definition. It just didn't seem that it made any sense for the town to have that when the use is within the NBOD. I mean, it's because it's going to be controlled by the special permit anyway, and the particular use. But we would have no objection to having an age restriction in that, as long as it wasn't any higher than 62. Again, these tenants need to market it, and like they're suggesting in their brochures, the large majority of the tenants and the residents are well into their 70s.
Can you confirm what we just talked about? We kind of segued off that real quick. So the 4th story is not for living?
We're not looking for 4 stories of
living.
I mean, we don't want to,
I
right
just want to
now.
make sure, I know how this works here, where someone's going to get on something, and I want to make sure we're clear about this.
Yeah, I have not seen a building design, so I'm not, at this point, going to say that. I mean, they're looking to do,
And David, you're saying that earlier conversations were specific about 3 stories of living?
Correct,
All right.
yes.
So,
And that's not correct, Ken?
Mr. Chair, if I could just provide the facts of the way it is now, the NBOD does not stipulate any of that. The underlying industrial zoning has a height, not a story requirement, the height.
Right.
Yeah, that was the discussion, was the
The industrial
height.
zoning is 40, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the NBOD doesn't speak to it, then it will default back. So at this point, we're talking about 40 feet. It
The
doesn't.
height, that was the discussion that we had, was the height.
Correct.
And everybody was
Not
saying it was
number-
3
Not number of
stories.
stories.
And even with, at 40 feet was the problem, okay, at 40 feet, it's difficult to build a structure that has 3 stories of living, because a story is roughly 13 feet, okay, so now you're at 39 feet, and you don't have roof lines, you don't have design, you don't have, so we're looking, and so our suggestion was, well, you simply make it a maximum of 4 stories, including everything, from ground to the highest point, and that would cover us. The proposal that was sent by Hawthorne is 3 stories of living, but it's clearly, well, it's clear to me anyway, that it's going to exceed 40 feet. Okay, and then even the planning board would not have any discretion, okay, to increase that, because it's a zoning thing, it would have to be a variance, and we really want to avoid having to go to multiple boards just to accommodate a use that is commonly a 3-story use.
Well, in talking with them yesterday after I got their plans, they basically said they're 40 feet to the eaves, but depending on how the building inspector interprets that, you know, I don't know whether they could put the pitch roofs on or not, which I definitely think you want, so I'd hate to say, okay, well, you gotta do a flat roof on the building, so it's just something we need to look at. I mean, their design is 40 feet to the eave of the roof, and depending how the building inspector's gonna, you know, calculate the roof, which, you know, I don't know, it's just an issue that, you know, I think we need to look at, in order to get the best design there.
Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify what Selectman Gavin has been talking about.
Absolutely.
So the concern when we held the hearings at the ad hoc committee was, if you recall, this is a neighborhood business overlay district, meaning that there are houses surrounding this property. And the concern was the height of the building compared to the surrounding residences. You know, that could be very overwhelming. And so it was very much a concern of how close a tall building would be to the surrounding residences. So height was very much the issue.
Did anybody discuss the design, the look and feel of a building versus just the height? I understand
So-
having a larger building next to a residential area can be overwhelming, but also a nice-looking taller building would be better than a not-so-nice-looking shorter building in some cases, correct?
So to answer your question directly, the concern was about the height.
Just the height, all right.
And it was about the scale of the building relative to the surrounding residences.
Thank you.
Yes, Vic?
Mr. Chairman, I think what they're discussing here right now, if you want to look at a new development, it kind of will show you how that's going to look up on Waltham Street. You just put up a bunch of residences in a business district, and if you drive up that street, and I guess the developer had every right to do it, but they don't enhance the neighborhood at all. And I think what you're talking about here would accomplish the same deal. You know, you'd have people looking down at you. Of course, you always have to consider the light and all the only that goes with it. Take a look at those buildings up there. It really
I've seen them, I've seen them.
They're right on the street.
Yeah. If I just may comment on that, that is why this particular use is subject to special permit, because the planning board would have the discretion and the authority, okay, and the obligation to make sure that the proposed use fits into to the project and into the neighborhood. I mean, our proposed location of this is in the back left portion of our property. It's going to be buffered to the rear by a large open area and the other residences. It does abut some residences way off to the back of the left, which are up a hill. So, I mean, again, that's planning board material. What we're looking to do at this level is to simply get a zoning guideline within which we can work. And I just felt it important to bring to John's attention that this one very attractive tenant who really wants to come into this community and wants to offer a service that I think the people want, pointed out to us that from floor to eave, they're 40 feet, and so we wanted to address it now. If this is not regulated this way, we may lose this use. There, in my hometown in Ashland, there are 2 new assisted living facilities under construction or just recently built. Each one of them have 3 stories with superstructure. I can look at them and they don't look like they look like they're slightly more than 40 feet to me. So it seems to be the state of the art for the industry as well. And I wouldn't want us to be foreclosed from these kinds of tenants, or as someone suggested, building something that looks like a 1965 high school, because that's what you might be, okay, having us have to do if we can't build the kinds of structures that are attractive. And I think you need to leave it to the discretion of the planning board for those minute details, but something that we need to work out.
I think some people might not see it as so minute, but...
No, and I understand that, and that just limits what we can then do, but...
Okay, so Attorney Whitten, we
You got a
have...
question on the back, Chris, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Well, I have a number of questions. Karen Grimes on Field Street.
Well, your question's for...
For continuing care.
Okay.
The definition. I've had to look into a lot of continuing care, different properties. One being New Horizon over in Marlboro, and it's a not-for-profit company, very good company, high-ranking landmarks. But my understanding of continuing care is you proceed from, this is what continuing means. You might go in as a very healthy 62-year-old, very active, but then as things change and your physical breaks down a little bit, you might need some assisted living, and at some point, you might even need, I would just say, the nursing home portion. And most continuing care that I've read from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts contains those three elements. Now, maybe it's changed since I looked, a year ago, but I'm very confused over what you're talking about for the residents behind us. Is it just going to be this continuing care community, or is it going to be a combination of apartments? I mean, I don't know what you're talking about for the site anymore. We went from 300 and something apartments to, so are we looking at only this structure in behind as part of the NBOD?
If I may respond, the present proposal would be just this structure as a CCRC, okay, with the additional residential apartments that have nothing to do with assisted living, would just be for rent apartments. We operate another CCRC in Worcester, which is, at present, has no facilities other than the socialization facilities that we discussed. We had hoped that this definition of continuing care would allow the use that we proposed, and we also included that it may include medical.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? I don't think we answered her question. So your question, if I may, Mr. Chairman? Your question is, what else besides the CCR is being planned back there, right? Okay, I think that's her question.
And I did, I said, and the 175 residential apartments.
Okay.
Okay, those are the 2 non-commercial proposed uses for this NBOD. This CCRC and the apartments.
Okay. I don't know, but to answer your question, I don't know if your question has been answered. To me, what I heard is the question doesn't seem to have been answered, because I thought you were asking, your concern was more along the lines of what are the elements of the CCRC, and you've read and done research, and it's had assisted living and other components. I think that's her question. Her question is, there seems to be a definition that she has read or she's seen that indicate different components in a CCRC than we see here. And I have the same question, in hearing that from her, what is there, John, a CCRC definition that the state accepts, or is it based on the developer or the owner of the property?
It's really, thank you, Mr. Chairman, it's really the municipality, it's zoning. It's not a statutory definition. It might be an industry-wide definition. This definition that we kicked around as a draft includes the phrase "may include healthcare," so that's an option. It also says, to address in part your question, it also states, offer an environment and the services necessary for residents to age in place. So it may not be technical language, but based on the request of the applicant, we put this in as a draft. So may include healthcare, does allow age in place. So that, I guess the theory is the traditional CCR definition does apply here, but it's case by case. It's what the applicant proposes.
Where do you see that?
So this is, Mr. Chairman, 93.13,
It's the last page.
the last page.
Okay, all right.
Chris, if I may, my concern with the CCR model, CCRC model, is, I'll be blunt, it seems like a backdoor way to have added residences, because that's not the type, so you limit the age to 62, so what you've done is, in effect, put in an additional 100 and some odd units that are elderly housing. That's not what the town suggested was wanted back there. And I think to suggest that it is misleading, and it's also disingenuous to what that lengthy discussion by the ad hoc committee and lengthy discussion by the visioning sessions suggested. It's clear what an assisted living facility is.
Yeah, and this is clearly not
assisted living.
It is not.
And that's, I'd say, to really assure that we don't block ourselves and not move forward, take that off the table.
This definition was crafted, okay, to accommodate this use. This end user, okay, wanted the opportunity to present to this board, okay, and to the town, what its use was. And before, I think we dismiss it, we should perhaps give them that opportunity. This is a very successful senior housing type of facility that's nationwide. They call it congregate living, okay, as opposed to assisted living, primarily because of the absence of the medical care. And I understand your concern. I was not part of the dialogue that went by before, so I'm not as sensitive to it. We felt that this use would be something the town wanted, but before we dismissed it, I would like the board, and these folks are willing to come up before you.
How about then replacing all of the residences with CCR, and you have, 300?
Because this is not a rental apartment. These people contractually come in, okay, these elderly senior residents come in and they contract for services. They're generally older, they have their meals served to them, they live in a congregate situation where they socialize with other seniors that are living there. It is entirely different than the apartments that are in the back, which, as you point out, are apartments, okay? Those are going to be 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. This is different, and I note it's not assisted living, and I would just say, before we dismiss it out of hand, I would like these folks to have the opportunity to explain it to the board, and they'd be willing to come and sit before you.
Okay. Yes, Ron?
Just a comment, I guess I have 2 comments. One is, we had various discussions with the same group of people about not writing zoning for a specific tenant. It sounds like that's what we're doing. And the reason we had those discussions was the developer's concern was not to be restrictive because something changes, somebody goes out of business, and the town, for the same reason, we don't want to wind up with a potential empty building with a specific use when there could be the continuous living that David talked about. So I was always under the impression we don't want to write zoning for a tenant. The second, I guess, question I have is 9.3.1, in June, the Selectmen had quite an extensive discussion with the developer in addition to the number of units, and I believe it was considered more critical or very critical that we specify the number of bedrooms, and I thought you had agreed on the number of bedrooms, and I realized that the number of bedrooms could be in the development agreement in another place, but it would seem to me, since that discussion that I sat in on several meetings,
You're right.
that we ought to insert in here the number of bedrooms that were agreed to or we reached consensus agreement.
The number of bedrooms
Thank
was
you.
248, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we had 248 was what we agreed to at 175 units. And they've added 1 unit. With our special counsel, as they talked about earlier, to round up to meet the 10%. But the number was 248.
If I may have
Are we still at 248?
Well,
Aside from the one that we're talking about rounding, are we still at 248 in units in the original housing?
Yes, we haven't changed anything. The vote that was taken by this board was for 175 units to include 17 affordable, okay? We had suggested, okay, if, and then John had suggested, well, statewide, it's usually 10%. That wasn't the vote that you took. Your vote was 175, 17 affordable. It was just an offhand comment. We said, well, why don't we go to 176, okay? Then the 10% is 18 units, and we'll make that extra unit an affordable unit. That's how we got there. We're happy to stay with what this board voted for, 175 and 17, okay? It's whatever you wanted. It was just to try to get the numbers, the percentages to comport with what we were doing.
But again, the bedrooms was one of the real key points that made us
That hasn't changed.
And that hasn't changed. And that was in your vote, and that's what we're going to do, unless you change to 176, and then it would add 2 bedrooms.
Mr. Chairman, just one question here, just so I'm clear. So there's 3 definitions in here in 9.3.13, right? So we're talking about the CCRC. Is there any opportunity to have also an assisted living or independent living as well? Or you're saying this is the vendor that is looking to move in with you? Nothing else in this area of those 3 definitions down below besides that one?
Well, at present, that is the tenant that has expressed interest and signed on to come into this development. One of our requirements is obviously to make sure that they're allowed to. By having a broad definition of a CCRC, okay, and we're not, we are zoning for this tenant in this instance, but the NBOD is also providing for other uses, okay?
Well, that's where my question's originating from. It doesn't mean that we're locked into CCRC.
No.
But in this case, you're asking this because the tenant that you're discussing, the potential tenant, you don't have anybody in the assisted living facility area or independent living right now. You have someone we're classifying as CCRC.
Right, congregate living.
What happened to the other one that you said was really anxious to come in when we were talking about it back in June?
I mean, all we're talking about is definitions here. It's the same people. I mean, here's the,
Okay.
they advertise themselves as an independent living facility. I don't understand why they couldn't just as easily be under the independent or assistant, because that's what they are. I mean, it's.
Then
it's
take,
more-
as I said earlier, let's just take the continuing
and
care
that's why I guess the
requirement. The
lawyer wanted to
62
talk to
thing,
Kevin.
quite honestly, age 62 is what gets me, because many people in this room are close to being able to be eligible for that, and they're very healthy, they're driving around, it's just an added apartment, and that's not what we talked about when we talked about it.
David, these don't even have kitchens, these units. There's no ability to cook in there. They have like a warming, it's a full service, and I'll give you this, or else you can send you this too. They just sent this over. It's a 24-page of exactly what they are. It's exactly what we talked about.
Okay, so, where'd she go? Bill, you're hiding her. Did you have another question? Yeah, you have to stand up. But go ahead, because I know you were looking to ask something, or comment.
Here's the thing, way back in 2006 when we started all this NBOD, we really actually thought that we would get some real estate tax property back there, like the condos, for over 60, 62, so you'd get some money for the town with real estate taxes instead of just rental properties the whole time. So, we're thinking, okay, neighborhood, this would be nice, you put in something like this, and, now we're talking, the continuing care and the apartments, and that's all very nice, but we're still looking at another big block of apartments there too. And then, are we still looking at supermarkets and retail and pad sites, and on that property back there with that little 2-lane road, even if you put a turning lane, I can't envision the structure of a continuing care along with an apartment house there, along with everything else. It's not fitting, a vision, I don't feel, what it was from day one. That's just an appointment. I look and I see real estate taxes that you can get Or condos.
They're still gonna pay tax. There's still a tax, and there's still a dollar value attached to each apartment that has to be taxed. So
Right,
the tax,
But what about continuing care? How is that taxed?
the units are still taxed.
Whoever the owner of the property is still gonna pay tax, right?
But- Well, the building is taxed.
And if they own motor vehicles, they're excise as well.
Well, I think the issue, yeah, Ken, before I go.
The one thing I guess I would point out is, in fairness, you're being asked to approve a definition I'm sure the Attorney Whitten will tell you that there are several steps of protection for the town here. One, there's a concept plan that they have to put in place, and that would specify where things are going to go, the scale and uses and things like that. And then there's the development agreement that you gentlemen have complete power over, where you can specify additional conditions in terms of, whatever restrictions that you want to place on it. You're being asked simply here to approve a general zoning definition and a general zoning approach, okay, which still has, through the concept plan stage, the site plan approval stage, and the development agreement stage, which you all have complete power over, several stages of protection for the town. I'm just laying that up there.
Right, okay, and, thank you. 'Cause I was kind of going there. I think that, we, the five of us, and several other people in the room, have just seen this for the first time tonight, as the rest of you folks are seeing it, this definition and what it means. I, for one, would like to have somebody that, represents the group that plans on putting, that is going to operate CCRC or one of these type of things. Let's ask them some questions about, David has some questions, Terrence, we'll all have some questions about it. Let's ask those questions. At the same time, let's ask the questions about the facades, the eaves, the roofs. Let's get all that done in one night. Let's just, get that done, bring them in and whack that out and see where it goes. Because it's all, you guys have some plans, Kevin has some plans. We haven't seen anything, and we also don't, at least I don't feel comfortable with, that I know what the definition of CCRC versus assisted living. So it would be nice to answer, the lady's question and anyone else's question in regards to those two items. So I think that's where we have to go next. I appreciate the hard work that you guys are doing, and we're moving forward in the spirit of the last couple meetings that we've had. I'd like to just keep going that way, but I think we have to clear that up, because I think that's an important piece.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you tell
especially
me
the aesthetic piece.
when you want them here, and they will be here.
Okay, we'll get that within the
Okay,
next.
again, yep.
I want to get it like, we could do it at the next meeting or the meeting after, just so that we have enough time to.
Next meeting.
I think the next meeting, because we've been informed that we have a deadline on the warrant closes in the middle of November.
Okay.
And these folks are, I think they're ready to get on the plane, so you tell us when
so
you want
20th.
them here.
The 20th?
October 20th.
Okay.
Here.
And I'll
So-
confirm that with Kevin tomorrow.
And, I think we ought to, I don't want to make it a public hearing, but, just so everyone is aware that that's what's going to be on the agenda that night, so the questions can be heard.
Can we choose an independent night rather than having it along with other selectmen's business and have it,
We did that before, right?
we've done it
Tuesday,
before.
Southwest.
Do it any way you want.
Well,
It's okay. I mean, if that's the feeling of the board wants to do it that way, we can do that, certainly. I don't have any objection to it. Tim, is that okay with you? Second night? Okay. Well, let's find a night then that doesn't conflict with anything that the planning board has or anything like that, because I would think that the planning board would want to attend that as well. And we'll go with that plan.
Again, tell us, and I think that we're going to be as flexible as we can, and these people will be as flexible as they can. I just need to know the night, as long as we don't have meeting elsewhere.
The 13th or the 27th, Kevin, one of those two?
the 27th is probably more fair, given that,
Okay, but then again, I don't know if that gives us enough time.
Both are planning, Bill, please correct me if I'm wrong, both are planning board meetings?
Right, I'm checking that right now, and I think you're right.
I know the 13th is.
All right, so
Different day than the 10th and Tuesday.
27th is a planning board night.
All right, so,
As of right now, there's not a heavy agenda.
well, there's nothing in this calendar that I'm looking at for Wednesday, the 21st, so.
27th is not good for applicant.
Okay, how about Wednesday, the 21st? Seven.
It's not good for me.
We've now pushed it beyond the next meeting date of the board anyway.
What's that?
We have the housing production, that's the night for the housing production.
Yeah, that's 20th, 1st, or 23rd is not good.
Okay. Monday, the 19th.
FinCom, but, right, no, that's,
Yes, sir.
We have to get
This
it
is a
done.
national company, I'm sure they have other architectural renderings of buildings that they've done throughout the country besides what they're doing this right now. And if so, can they bring that presentation with them or that architectural layouts?
I'll tell them to be prepared to discuss the array of product that they could foresee in this location. I mean, I don't know what their other product is, I really don't, but I'll tell them that the town is very concerned with what they're gonna build, what it's gonna look like, how high it is, what services. You will get a good presentation from these people.
Is this a representation right here that we're looking at right here?
Yeah, that's one of, that's what they sent to me yesterday, and I sent it to Kevin this morning.
I mean, the closest facility they have is in Westboro on Main Street that they just finished. And I think what they're looking to do here is something similar to that.
Do you have a name in Westboro?
It's 14.
We knew it last time. I know you knew it last time.
In the center where some of those other places were done.
did we do the 14th or 15th?
I can do any day, it doesn't matter to me.
Do it early.
That's what I mean, if we could do
See,
it
we can't do
early.
Monday.
Just tell us, I think. No, wait, no.
Wednesday, Thursday, the 14th or 15th? Do it soon.
The 14th.
14th is a training.
So
Let's
15th.
just put it on the 27th, that's the
Well,
easiest.
no, it's bad for,
Oh, they can't go on the
27th is bad for
27th, got it.
The 15th is okay, I think. Anybody have a problem with the 15th?
No, 15th's fine.
Thursday's generally the least meetings.
Next Thursday?
Okay.
I'll see what I can do.
They'll be
The
here.
15th is good
Yeah,
for you guys?
I'm sure that, I mean, as sure as we can be, they
Okay.
told us, set it up, they'll be here, and I assume that that's,
All right.
yep, I'll set it up.
Kevin, did you want to have it in this room or get a bigger room?
It's a big room downstairs?
Well, the library?
I don't know if the library is much bigger than this, but okay. We can do it at the library, we can do it here.
We'll figure out the logistics.
And what should I tell them, 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock's good, yeah, the library certainly, there's more parking available. But
It's better for power.
you guys decide the building, but that date and time works. So we'll go over the definitions of the two and the comparisons, and we'll talk about aesthetics. So what else?
There was only one other issue that I wanted to comment on, and I don't recall whether we requested this, we probably did, was, and I don't want Mr. Gavin's wrath, but I believe we requested the inclusion of the fast food alternative in the MBOD, subject to special permit, because, and I know that, and you don't have to repeat the objections that you feel the townspeople are gonna have, but again, the planning board would have the protections, town meeting would have the concept plan approval, okay, and I think that intelligently presented, some of these, what people have this adverse reaction to fast food restaurants, are something that fit nicely into communities, fit nicely into these kinds of projects, and the reason that we requested it is because these fast food restaurants, like a Wendy's, like a Burger King, okay, would want to go into these kinds of locations. And their aesthetics can be controlled through the site plan process, so again, it'd be our request that it remain as a use by special permit, subject to planning board and subject to the concept plan and the planning board approval.
But we heard earlier, but we heard earlier from Angela, from Mr. Whitten, that special permit really, let's be blunt, means nothing. Just because the reality is the community has said at various meetings that they don't want a fast food restaurant at that location. Now, again, to Terrence's point earlier, what the definition of fast food restaurant, I trust that John can create a definition that eliminates Wendy's, McDonald's, and the ones that you're talking about. Because why are you putting up a block that will just cause you to lose votes?
Well, and that's the.
I don't want that.
And that's the argument
Just take that stuff away,
that
because
I
I
follow.
want this to move forward, and you're just causing problems by putting in things that are going to cause problems. You're going to have an hour-long discussion at town meeting about fast food restaurants, and you know what? You lose the vote.
Right? I think.
We'll look at that.
Well,
We'll have to look at
Well,
that.
okay, you know what? I think part of the issue is that Terrence brought up earlier, and it was, I thought it was a point that was well taken at the time, was that the definition of fast food restaurants and restaurants that people consider fast food restaurants has changed. I don't consider Panera a fast food restaurant, but by definition, Panera can be considered a fast food restaurant. So, I mean, if we limit that term, we're limiting places like that most people in most communities don't have a problem with the Paneras of the world.
Absolutely agree.
And some of the others.
And
So
that's why I said John can come up with a definition that will eliminate the possibility of McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and the fast food restaurants that traditionally have been known as the ones that people go in and that people say we shouldn't have near high schools, people say we shouldn't have, those types of things. Panera is, in many ways, a sit-down restaurant for many people, so it's...
Well, we'll revisit it. I mean, obviously, we do not want to throw up roadblocks to town meeting approval, and if this board feels strongly that that's one of them, then
If we
I
can come
will...
up with a definition that eliminates
Do you have a
Wendy's,
lead on who
McDonald's...
these restaurants might be?
But the definition.
I just named them. Okay, right. I mean, so, yeah, and again, that's why, we're in the business of not only developing this mall, but filling it, okay, and we also understand, though, the town's sensitivity to some uses. We ask, and then we don't get, and we go on to something else.
The resident
Question.
back with a hand up.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Hi, Michelle Bluefield Street. So when I think of drive-through, I think of fast food, I think of drive-throughs, right? Every fast food restaurant wants a drive-through. Possibly eliminating drive-throughs, is that going to eliminate some fast food restaurants?
It would definitely eliminate
I think
Panera.
that site is
Eliminate
very
Panera?
conducive
Yeah.
to lots of
It would eliminate the
drive-throughs.
pride.
I only saw one drive-through in the last plan that you guys had, and that was the one attached to the supermarket, correct?
There's a bank, too, I
It
think.
looked like a bank drive-up anyway.
Pharmacy
All
drive-up.
right.
Panera Bread won't build without a drive-through.
Without a drive-through.
New construction.
Yeah, but their new,
It's not gonna go with drive-through, huh?
yeah, but their new,
New
If
construction.
you were able to
won't
entice a Chipotle, I'm sure you'd have every 18 and 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid from college come home and vote for it, so, I mean,
We'll
figure that out, so it works.
Panera's latest,
Latest concept. they will
latest
not build
model
new
and
construction.
building model, Panera's latest and greatest building model, all of the new restaurants, if, given the choice, they are not, as a company, looking to build any more of their restaurants without a drive-through.
Correct.
That's new, but it's new, but unfortunately, I spend my life in the food industry, and that's where that's their newest statement, that they don't want it. Dunkin' Donuts is looking at the same thing. They're taking a lot of their restaurants out of smaller places that don't have drive-through, going to drive-through. So they're all changing the model to include drive-through.
Yeah.
But
So just to add, I think as Attorney Whitten and I talk, we certainly, I think we can add it, we can address it within the NBOD through definition.
okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, could I just offer two quick comments? I know it's running late. The housing cap could include bedroom cap as well. It was written to omit the bedroom cap because I think it would be better in the development agreement, but there's no reason why it couldn't be in the text of the zoning bylaw. The only other downside perhaps would be because the NBOD, as this gentleman said, and I agree with him completely, you shouldn't write zoning for a particular project. So by keeping the bedroom count out, it would allow potentially for another NBOD somewhere in Maynard, if that's in the cards, and so that would be flexible for the maximum number of bedrooms at that location. The second comment is on the never write zoning for a particular project. Not only would it probably not pass Attorney General review, it would be the wrong way to proceed. So this bylaw is, we're recognizing that you have an applicant who wants certain things, but at the end of the day, it's going to be town meeting that approves the concept plan. So this is the skeleton of what's allowed and what's prohibited. At the end of the day, the bottom line's going to, the buck stops with town meeting. So I would ask the Board of Selectmen to think about this as what's allowed and what you would want, invite, and not reject, and that's the bylaw that should go to town meeting. If it has ambiguous language or areas or structures or uses that you would never accept, then they shouldn't be in this draft.
Anybody else have any comments or questions for, yes? Abe?
Yeah, I got two things for you to mull over in the future. One is the issue of the height and the desire for 45 feet instead of the 40 that's allowed. And one consideration might be it more palatable if that was on the interior of the site. So perhaps a higher height limit is allowed with an extended setback from residential area. So say it was, you could go 45 feet if you were 200 feet away from residential instead of 30 or whatever.
Yeah,
So something to think about there. And then the drive-through stuff, you might consider a limitation on hours of operation for restaurants, because that would be a big differentiator in the type of food establishment we're talking about. I mean, if you cut out the hours at 8 p.m., Panera wouldn't care too much, but McDonald's is.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Bill. Anybody else before I let these guys go home?
My daughters would care.
Okay. We'll see you guys on the...
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whatever day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, you can take this back.
I'll send it out. I just got that from these
Oh,
guys.
you got it.
That's the same one that emailed. PDF.
No, Thursday the 15th.
Wasn't sure.
Those are just.
Okay. Anyway.
So you know what's going on.
So we're talking about Thursday the 15th was the tentative.
Thursday the 15th, right? 7 o'clock?
Terrence already forgot.
No, he said like 3 different days. I said whichever one, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll confirm with Angela, I'll make sure.
Yeah. Well, David, you're acting like 62 is a bad. If I can get in there, I'll get in there early. Make my
Age
moves.
doesn't
Make
matter,
my.
though. Age doesn't matter. Because 62 will probably not gonna want to hang around.
Thanks, Angela.
These 70-year-old people are in better shape than 60-year-old people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, he I was waiting for his client, was the guy, and that never happened. He just responded.
This other guy left.
Yeah, certainly, I'd like to.
Yeah, and I'll make sure you talk before the meeting.
I'm familiar with it.
Peg funds.
Thanks, John.
Good night, gents.
Thank you. All right, so everyone here from the school?
Did we vote on this?
No,
I don't see anybody from school.
they typically are not here for that request.
Wow, they're not getting it though.
It's coming up. That's the next one.
Joe call.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Okay,
That was a big 10-minute discussion.
well,
Oh, yeah, I think it is.
A big 10
I
minutes.
just want to wait for Jason to get back before we get into that then. Are you going to explain it?
Thanks.
Explain.
Bill the Patriot. I think it's Bill, isn't it?
Where's my freaking same person? My agenda report.
You ever seen them both in the same place at once?
Lost it.
Wow, look at, we still have people here. It's great.
Is it on the agenda?
Got a question right here.
Yep.
What would be the tax revenue on both of those buildings, the apartments and then the assisted living or whatever you want to call it? You guys don't have the answer. Could that answer be on the next meeting?
We had the answer at one point. I don't think we had the figures in front of us. The assessment.
Oh, we do. We have the
You have it?
updated
Yeah.
housing. I don't have it with me tonight. I can certainly provide it to you. We had a,
It was 1.8 on the entire parcel.
yeah, we even had it adjusted with the specific vote of the 175 units. that was done, RKG Associates did it, Judy Barrett, so we have the financial available.
But you have nothing on condos as opposed to the apartments, correct?
Correct.
We did have that, we did have that.
Yeah,
The numbers were in the mid 1.5, 1.8 million, somewhere in there for revenue, and about $700,000 in service costs to the community. So when you slice and dice all the different pieces, that the retail piece, the housing piece, and so on.
service costs
That's where it all came in.
tend to rise the more it morphs from congregate independent living to assisted living. You have a
I
bigger,
thought it was that
a bigger impact.
condos didn't produce a bucket of
No. No, it didn't.
The unit is what's being taxed, not the use.
Okay.
The unit's being taxed, not the use.
And the costs.
Correct. I certainly can make it available. It's a public document. In fact, I think it is available online
Yeah.
under the planning board specific 129 Parker Street project site that has, it's RKG. If not, I can bring it with me and,
Are you looking for the specific tax number, or are you looking for the net benefit to the town based on those things going in? It was $828,000 based on what
Yeah.
they said.
Yeah.
Would be the net benefit all said and done.
correct.
So, that's what the service cost and everything, so.
58 acres, that's not a lot of money.
Cost money to operate it for sure, yeah, but I guess the news is you wouldn't be losing money on it, was the important thing, right? With, you're providing more services. You still, did that include the water intake too, the potential water? No, it didn't include the water bills or anything, so.
Correct.
Someone else in the back, Chris.
Yep.
Paul Kyoto, Cutting Drive. One of the comments that Ms. Barrett had made last time she was here, just in reference to the site plan, and, an overwhelming sea of parking, which I think a lot of people share, lack of green space. Is there an updated site plan or anything to react to in terms of how dense the current?
No, but it's been discussed with these two gentlemen that just left, so that has been addressed. We haven't seen the newest version of that. What's the latest version? But it's been
It's going to
addressed.
depend on the NBOD.
Yeah.
If you approve certain things, they're going to lay it out differently. So they haven't updated the site plan because we haven't agreed on what can be included.
But that has to be public before town meeting, so.
Absolutely, but in answer to his question, the existing site plan is what we have because the NBOD is still in flux.
Yes.
When was the last time you saw one? You recall?
When Ms. Barrett was here doing.
That's the most recent.
Site plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything, any question about the old PK2 that is lingering there on the site, being broken into quite often?
Well, I don't know anything about that.
We've had a lot of trouble up there. We've had the police up quite a bit for break-ins.
Talking about the building that still exists there that we're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's been wild up there.
I haven't heard anything about it.
Yeah.
Hasn't come to me.
Yeah, it has now, no.
Okay.
Seriously, it's been a.
That's, I will run the call reports tomorrow. That hasn't been, we'll look at it. Yeah.
Okay.
Have they, since it's been known, have they taken action to secure it better, or?
They do.
Property owner?
Last I heard, they had broken in doors and they let all the fire extinguishers all go and threw everything around and they just tried to, I think, light some fires in there. It wasn't going to go anywhere anyway, but it's been a problem. There's been old sofas thrown there on the cot. You can't imagine the stuff that's going on. Yeah, couches, sofas. So
Okay.
just to keep it out, it'd be nice to have someone patrol that site a little more or secure it maybe a little bit.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Kevin, can you explain item number 8, request from the school for PEG funds?
Yeah, so the board has before them 2 requests. I'd actually prefer to flip them and start with the request for the annual request. The one with related to capital is not a reoccurring annual. So if we can just start with the reoccurring annual request for PEG access funds. What we've done differently, you'll note on there, is we've requested, this past fiscal year budget, we've requested the full costs of the healthcare costs that are associated with the position prior to FY16's budget. There was only requests for the actual salary costs, not the true cost for that employee. So this is reflective of similar requests that we had for FY15 and FY16, which requests salary expenses related to the director and the paraprofessionals, the two paraprofessionals that work within WAVM, as well as the healthcare costs that are associated with the director, the only benefit eligible position, and they're requesting of the Board of Selectmen to approve $110,741.48 for the use to cover those costs as it relates to WAVM program and the licensing agreement with PEG Access.
What's our current balance? If you said it, I apologize. Current balance in PEG Access?
Yeah, I can get that. That's easy. It's right around, we're right around $700 and something thousand dollars. Yeah. Combined between, well, you don't really need to know the breakdown. It's Comcast and Verizon. The funds were 4, they're now 2. It dealt with annualized payment as well as initial capital payments that were made.
So, we've approved this type of PEG access funding for WAVM in the past, and I support it and still do. The two differences are these paraprofessional positions that are on there. Have those always been on there?
Yes.
They have, okay.
Yes. The difference, actually, there's really no difference from FY15's request, other than I think that was like 108. The difference from years prior is that we have asked them to include the costs of the healthcare costs and those benefits that directly hit our general fund budget should be applied. The total cost of what that employee is really costing us, and that's reflected in the PEG request.
And then the last point, if you haven't addressed it already, because I missed part of your comments, but can you explain to the board why there is no need to go to town meeting for this allocation?
So, right now, it's a fund that where the authorization is with the Board of Selectmen to expend. I will talk about that at a later point where that is actually changing under Department of Revenue requirements. So moving forward, this will be the last year it's sort of done this way.
We'll have to go to town meeting with this request.
So, well, what we'll have to do is we have to put it on the, we'll have to end up putting it on the expenditures, creating, something within probably data processing within our IT budget to have a line item for these costs, the costs of filming selectmen's meetings, whatever our costs end up being, $250,000 annually will be on the expenditure side. And similar to how we do offsets with like ambulance receipts, for instance, we would take that out of that fund, like we do an ambulance receipt fund, and that will be reflected on the revenue side. So
Well, it has to be reflected in the annual budget, so the school's not going to be able to come to us in future years in January and say, we're going to need this. They're going to need to come to us at budget time.
Correct.
The previous year to
Correct.
say we're going to need it.
So that we can properly calculate what that new line item will be.
Good.
There's, expenses that are taken from that annually that are related to cable access, this type of function with data for iPads, Zach's time, WAVM usage, that all come out of that. We're going to have to, in FY17 budget for that as a line item, which is a change under requirements with Department of Revenue, so.
So Kevin, if I may, so there's no fund for the PEG money. We're just taking money someplace else and actually being asked to fund under this auspice, the Public Educational Government Access Agreement funds. There's not a fund that exists with that money per se, correct?
There is.
There is a specific, how was that funded?
That was funded under our licensing, cable licensing agreements with Verizon and Comcast.
So from there, deposit directly into that fund?
Correct.
A
So
certain
we
portion of that.
receive access money that comes in every month, and at the beginning of the license, at the beginning of the agreement, each one of them was required to contribute capital investment money. I think Verizon made a one-time bulk payment of a couple $100,000. Comcast made theirs over a 5-year period. But nonetheless, it used to be capital and annual for each, so there were 4 accounts. There's now just Comcast and Verizon.
Okay.
So we are, we are still receiving revenue. At some point, as these things, get larger and grow, what we're watching is that, right now we have a good, we have a good balance in those accounts. But what becomes of concern is if the revenue that we're receiving, our expenditures are exceeding that revenue, then over time, that's going to be an issue, certainly. But, right now, the funds are in great shape, and there's capital, there's other money that are there.
When we negotiate, I'm sorry.
I just want to finish up, if you wouldn't mind. So you said things are changing. If I read this, obviously they provide a service for us to film this for the rest of the town. So I don't really totally see it as a 100% school, but when I see Dr. Girardi's name on this and I see salaries for people who work for the school, why is that not in the school budget? Why is it coming back afterwards?
It's a WAVM function. The intent behind PEG money is exactly what WAVM is, right? It's a public broadcasting, it's that cable. And, whenever, I don't know at what point it was ever decided, you'll see some communities will fund their IT director 100% salary with PEG money. I don't know, it was well before my time,
Does the WAVM director work for the school department,
Yes.
or does he work for the town?
So the request of why it's coming from him is he's a school employee.
Okay.
On the flip side of that, the folks that, Zach or whoever may be here, that operates the recordings, is paid for out of on our side.
And you're saying next time we're going to have to account for what our cost is in this process a little bit differently?
Correct.
So whatever service they're providing for us, we're sort of charging back what it's going to cost, and that's going to have to be allocated. So we shouldn't see this type of request next year, is that what you're saying?
I should see this request like in January, so that I can budget for it within the operating budget for FY17.
Okay.
And then what will happen is we'll show an appropriation out of these funds for that, so it'll basically be a wash. The revenue will be accounted for on the revenue side, say $250,000, and on the expense side, the budget will be $250,000. So the budget, if you look at just the expense budget, it's going to go up drastically. But the revenue to cover that it's just a change in Department of Revenue requirements on how we handle that fund.
Yeah,
Yeah, on the expenditure side. It's exactly like the ambulance receipts.
And
which helps
as
fund.
Kevin said, the intent of these PEG money, which, by the way, is not just by the kindness of Verizon and Comcast's heart. You
Correct.
see on your bill, there's
Yeah.
a charge every month for PEG. So it's coming from the taxpayer, it's coming from the cable viewer and whatever, but then they give that money, basically, they've surcharged it, and they give that money to the community. And we negotiate with
Correct.
Verizon and with Comcast at the time that their contract comes up with the community, and we talk about what they're going to give us as a give back, quote unquote, for public access television, public access educational government. And some channels, when you watch Verizon, I just got Verizon, so I'm fascinated by it. Some towns actually have 3 channels, one for public stuff, one for educational stuff, and one for government stuff.
So they have a cable access board or something like that. I mean, we're operating with, the WAVM program, which does a great job. But as Selectman Gavin said, every subscriber, whether you're a Comcast or a Verizon subscriber, you're paying that government use fee, and that's what, that's the money we're receiving. But to that point, we're also going to be negotiating a new contract. They give you a 3-year notice. We received that 3-year notice a few months ago, but it's a long process. So with some of this PEG access money, we're going to need to take legal fees out of that to hire the appropriate special counsel to be able to, accurately negotiate. And it's a big nugget for the town, and the licensing of this renewal is a big piece. So it's a specialized, which we did at our prior license as well.
Last comment on this. Do we know what it actually costs to film this in every 2 weeks?
We Well, yeah, I mean, it's like in the budget-wise, it depends on how long you guys talk. I'm ready to call it now.
It's been really expensive this year.
No more than 2 hours. We haven't, I mean, we really don't. We will as we go back and look at history, and we're gonna have to budget on the higher end of, what the average of the last couple of fiscal years have been. But, we could be talking here till 11:30 at night, and last meeting we got out at 9. So there is some, fluctuation of that, and it's pretty much, the recording piece is time-driven, as kind of like an hourly thing. Other things are fixed costs. I mean, I know how many iPads we have. I know how much user fees are per month. I know those things are fixed, that we have, we can easily budget for. Other things that, it might be an upgrade in this room that we've needed, things like that, but we'll have to kind of look at it more closely to develop a proper budget that's going to carry us through the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Is that it? Clock's ticking.
Mike?
And one of the things too, in the new rule, which this is one of the things we're talking, they haven't
can't hear you.
completely decided, and
You gotta speak up, I can't hear
they
you.
haven't completely decided exactly what the rules are. For instance, we may, even though you may have to go to town meeting to appropriate the funds, they may have a separate ruling that says, well, if it's a capital project, you may, just appropriate it at town meeting, independent of that. Those are the questions we're looking at DOR to get, better understanding as to how this is all going to work, because it's brand new. I mean, in terms of all that, and I probably, have 9 or 10 questions as to, before we even get to the budget process, as to, what we're going to be handle this, so.
And if I may, just one point to Terrence's question about the budget, the school, or whatever. My recollection is that our use of this money, it did used to be funded out of the school budget, and it just was within the last 5 years or so that it became apparent to us that a much better approach to help the schools, as well as to help the community, because we don't have to budget out of the municipal budget in any fashion, but the schools in particular, was to use this money, and it's perfectly acceptable within the statutory language of PEG, so it helps the school.
I think part of that, to that point, that's exactly how I recall in the stories I've heard, but also that point when we had a staff IT person, I think we were using some of those funds, and that, that's been 7 years now, so some of that money got, relieved because it was in the operating budget, and I think it was switched over to the WAVM position.
Okay, any more questions? You guys can go see Mike, because you're spending money. So, we're moving on. All right, so we're gonna go through, we'll do the request is the same for both, really, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we haven't spoken.
What are we doing?
You want to do them separately, or just, we can,
Why don't-
we'll do the motion separately, but since we're on the topic, I can explain the request that came in for the WAVM capital piece. This is something that there was some higher level discussion a couple of years ago, sort of the new building with the high school construction, in particular, some of the equipment that WAVM felt was needed that was in there with lighting and some other upgrade needs. And we've been discussing it, and we met with Dr. Girardi, myself, we met with Mark Venetian, and looking at what his needs are at the facility, and he determined that, he still has equipment needs, and he's requested the dedicated capital money, and a sense of some of that money, he was hoping that could be earmarked back to the WAVM program. So that's absolutely in line with the use. I think the capital expenditures, the big pieces that were done, were obviously this room, this facility, and the tower that was put in at the school. That was a big capital item. Aside from that, we really haven't had too much capital.
There was,
purchases
Kevin, some extensive, and you may have mentioned this, but extensive equipment purchased, and it was reimbursed by MSBA when we
That's
built
correct.
the new high school.
Yep.
And there was a lot of lighting inside the studios, which I'm sure someone like Zach has had the opportunity to utilize in there.
Yeah, that was originally.
Professional studio and everything else. That was all reimbursable.
That's correct.
This is,
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a very, from looking at it, myself, I mean, it looks like a very high-tech, capable facility, and looks better, could rival CBS. But from Mark's standpoint, a lot of the equipment was brought over from the old high school. Is stuff that is antiquated and not usable. So that's why you have that capital request. And what I did was I asked him to put it in writing to provide us with what those costs would look like. And that's why you have that capital equipment request justification and the reason for what they need. And again, the big part of it was, the lighting was done in sort of the shell, but all of the equipment that was used is 6+ years old and came over from the old high school. It didn't come in the new building. So that's where this $40,486 PEG fund request is to support the program in capital needs.
Okay.
And I would recommend that we do approve that.
Okay.
After my discussions with them and seeing the need, I think it certainly is in line with the intended license use, and it makes good sense.
Okay, anyone have any questions about the capital request? Okay, move to accept and approve the FY15 PEG funds request for $40,486 for WAVM equipment. Any seconds?
Second.
Any further comments? All those in favor? Okay. On the second piece, move to accept and approve the fiscal year 15 PEG funds for the public access program request dated September 11th, 2015. Any second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments? All those in favor? Okay.
They didn't have to come and sell it.
That'd be the only comment I would say, but I'm gonna hold back.
Attaboy. All right, so Kevin, can you just explain to us what the number 9 ACA employee?
Yeah, I'm actually going to ask Andrew to speak. He's been working on it.
Okay.
So I'll defer to Andrew on the Affordable Care Act
Andrew?
look-back period.
Good evening. If anyone's having trouble with insomnia, I highly recommend attending Affordable Care Act workshop sessions. Many of us are waiting with bated breath to learn the impacts of this new law on the country. We do anticipate that it's going to help control public health care costs in the long run, but in the short run, it's a real big guessing game. The first impacts of this are being felt by this town in January 2016, when we are required to comply with the reporting that the ACA brings to the table. That reporting says if you're a certain size employer, you need to tell us that you're providing health care to your employees or that you're not. And depending on the vagaries of the report, you may be assessed a fine. I don't think they call it a fine, but
It's an excise.
a tax essentially, and that money is then going to be used to help fund the Affordable Care Act for other folks who need health insurance. So if we don't provide it, they're going to go to the connector and get health care. And how is that going to be paid for? In part through the subsidies that come from these taxes from employers who aren't providing health care directly. So the town of Maynard, of course, is providing health care to its employees. So we're in very little danger of having to pay those fines. However, we still have to submit the report. So what we need to do is the authority, the Board of Selectmen, has to set a look-back period that will tell the town employees what to report on. We can select any period from 1 to 12 months, and everybody in the world is saying, choose 12 months. We have employees who work 12 months, and that's the look-back period we want. There's all sorts of exceptions, but that look-back period works. There's some weird businesses where a 1 month or a 3 month period or whatever suits them, but not for us. So what we do is we look back over the past 12 months, and we determine how many of our employees have worked at least 130 hours per month in that period, and we have to offer them health insurance. So for instance, our summer employees, they only work 3 months. They might work more than 130 hours per month in July and August, but we would be under no obligation to offer them health insurance because we're looking at the 12-month average, and they'll be well below the 130 hours for those 12 months. So that's why we want to set it at 12 months and not some shorter period, because it levels out our exceptions.
Okay.
So we need you to set that, and then the rest of it's on the folks in our payroll department to make it all happen. Maya, our health insurance carrier, is actually doing most of the work for us because most of our employees are subscribers. So the compliance work is very simple for them. For those employees who don't take the health insurance or who are part-time employees and not eligible for our health insurance, we have to provide that information as well. And if there is anybody that falls in between the cracks there, works more than 130 hours and is not offered the health insurance, the $3,000 penalty is far less than the cost to the town of offering that employee a health insurance plan. So we would elect to pay the penalty at that point. We don't anticipate any exceptions, but it is theoretically possible.
$3,000 per employee or $3,000?
Per exception.
Per exception.
Yeah. An exception would be an employee who works in multiple departments, perhaps, maybe as a school crossing guard and as a library page, or 2 or 3 different things. They might cobble together the hours that then exceed the average, but in none of those jobs are they above the point where we would normally offer them a health plan.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
All right. Is that it?
The rest of it's a lot of minutia that I don't think is relevant to this. If you understand that we need to set the look-back period, it needs to be authorized by you folks. The motion, I believe, is in your packet.
Yep, I have it, so I'll read it, and then we'll get on to the rest of it. Move to adopt the 12-month calendar year-based look-back period for the purpose of complying with the ACA ESRP rules. The first look-back will be conducted in January 2016, covering the period of January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2015. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion about it? Anybody have any questions?
Maybe I zoned out. Who's going to be doing the look back?
The Board of Selectmen.
Comments was pointed to.
The payroll department of the town.
Our own people?
Yes,
No-
our own people.
No outside agency or no
Well,
outside
Maya's
consultant?
providing it for our subscribers, but it's in conjunction with our payroll office because they have to verify hours worked. It's a pretty simple thing for most of it.
I know which retirement board member is going to be doing a look back.
Yeah. He's pretty good with his numbers, so he'll probably be helping out.
Okay, but no, does anybody have any questions for Andrew regarding this before? Anybody else?
No.
Tim?
Nope.
Terrence?
No.
David?
Nope.
Jason?
No.
Okay, so all those in favor? Thank you. Next. All right, you want to go through the next one, Kevin, just tell us what we're doing?
Yeah, I think the next one's pretty straightforward and, in my mind, a no-brainer. It's a program that's offered by the Division of Local Services that the Commonwealth has put out for sewer rate relief. That's made available funds of $1.1 million to be appropriated for municipal, as a total dollar amount for municipalities to apply for. Details of the program are essentially for eligible debt service that's defined as anything after permanent debt issued on or after 1990 for a term greater than 5 years, and for water pollution control projects, it can't have had state grant funds. There's some criteria that it met. So the finance team had an opportunity to One, we received the notice and take a look at it. We met, and the finance team has come up with several projects on water sewer projects that identified that meet this eligibility criteria. And as the Board of Selectmen and as the Water Sewer Commission is, the requirement for the application to the Division of Local Services requires approval of the board as well as some other town officials. What you have before you is a breakdown of specific projects with project descriptions of what those were for. There's some detail in there with First Southwest with the debt schedule. All of the projects are debt that's certainly more than 5 years and meet the eligibility criteria with a total FY16 debt service of $245,472.68. So it's not going to be a lot of money. I think the awards were based on eligible debt service with up to 20% of the debt service. So some of the nice part of it is it's somewhat unrestricted if and when awarded that we get. It certainly isn't as it comes across as a rate relief. We're not going to see a significant amount of money that's going to all of a sudden reduce our water sewer rates. But it is an opportunity for us to capitalize on some available state funds to do for other project areas. So, questions?
Is this,
Mike?
This been done before?
Jason had brought up was like, for instance, the use of the funds. They gave us $200,000. We can then take repairs to Florida Street and apply it against that and things like that. Or, so the use is totally unrestricted once we get the money.
What's the likelihood of actual success?
It's more like
Very good.
40,000.
They didn't even have enterprise funds, and they did a waste treatment plant for about $250,000, and they were getting $25,000 a year for 3 years over there. So
Let's
that's
hope we
what
get it.
led me to believe that it's
We're
not.
probably at 40,000 if
So I mean,
we can get it.
Oh, every bit helps.
25,000 for something that was like that small.
Yeah.
I figured we don't lose anything by
Right.
applying for it.
Yep.
If we do get 25,000 or we get 100,000, it really
I
helps us out.
think the likelihood is very likely that we'll get something. Yeah.
Good.
Have we before?
I don't know.
First time we ever done this, or?
Yeah, I don't have any record of us ever doing anything prior. I mean, it has been available prior to now, but
Yeah, this has been around.
I don't think we've done anything.
Foxborough was around and I was there for 11 years.
Yeah.
And I was there for 2 years before that, so this has been around for close to 15 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. Are you aware, Cheryl? Anything that? Yeah, I don't think we have
The program was unfunded
for a little
for a
right.
number of years.
It was.
So actually, I'll credit David with finding this and even bringing it to the attention of a lot of folks who are familiar with the program who just don't look at it anymore because the state hadn't chose to fund it in a number of years.
Yeah, it was originally created in 1993, and then there was some funding, and then it stopped, and then it started back up again. But I don't know why we haven't done it in the past.
David
Not a very-
Gavin, David?
Correct.
Oh.
It's not a very difficult application either. A lot of these grant applications require a significant amount of work. There was some work associated with pulling the information together, but they make it fairly easy for communities to apply. I don't know why we haven't done it in the past, but that's why it's before you tonight.
Okay. Okay, your kid go home on you or what?
I don't know, Selectman Egan, maybe he's one of the...
We're moving on. He'll have to catch up. All right.
It's the rapture.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Move to accept that the board execute the application for the FY 2016 distribution of sewer rate relief fund. Second.
Second.
Jason, thank you. So any comments on that? We can already had them.
It's just interesting that we have a sewer rate relief fund, meeting after we had a sewer rate increase hearing. So
Yeah.
maybe next year we do a little bit better from a planning perspective, at least give the impression that we're trying to look at all angles.
Well, they released it in September. We would have normally done our rate in May, so I understood, but.
Yeah, don't defend yourself, I'm just giving you constructive criticism, all right?
That's a pretty good defense.
All right. I didn't buy it, so.
If the TA was defending himself, he would have pointed out that it was the selectmen's job to set that rate.
We're not gonna get into that again.
But nonetheless, yeah.
You get my point, you get my point.
Coincidentally, yeah, the bulletin came out in September, and we didn't waste any time, we got right on it, and.
Because apparently there are people who watch this.
Good
after
to know.
they've recorded it and rewatch it a couple times, so.
Yes. Some even expound on it.
All right.
Okay, so, we made the motion was seconded, all those in favor? Okay.
Good evening.
Thank you,
They
Mike.
already signed it.
MBA,
So soon?
MBA request.
I do.
Christmas money.
I do see Mary in the audience, but this is a request that isn't new to the board. It's come before you in a few different variety of requests for some projects that the Maynard Business Alliance has sort of spearheaded. Last year it was dwindled down to just the sip and stroll, and this year's request is for the same holiday sip and stroll, and to request the funds of $4,952 for the lighting of Memorial Park, mostly, as well as some lampposts throughout the central business district, 20 to be exact, and some addition of garland and red bows, et cetera, the decorating that the Maynard Business Alliance has spearheaded and done a great job the last several years. I suspect the exact specific request, Mary, is based on an estimate you have from a landscape company?
And I can't take credit because Kelly and Nick Costa are the ones that initiated it. So Melissa Levine and I are just stepping up now. But the quote is based on the same service that they've used the last 3 years, which was from Dave's Landscape Company. So that was his latest quote.
Right, okay.
To do this. And also, so we sort of got into this a little late in the fall. So we had gone to see Bill Nemser and also Andrew the other day about ultimately applying for a BEAP grant down the road to kind of do it long-term. But in the meantime, we realized that we're really short on timetable. So that's why we're coming to you and asking you for $5,000 now for this year. So this will be the fourth time the sip and stroll has happened.
Mr. Chairman, if I could mention for a moment, part of the conversation that Bill Nemser and I had with Mary and Linda Thayer was that perhaps this was most appropriately funded through the BEAP. The whole purpose of those funds is to allocate money just for this type of thing. But given the time frame of how an application goes through the process, through the Economic Development Committee, and then back to the BOS for final approval, how you appropriate the money, if you choose to tonight, it could then perhaps revert, or you could just allocate the money directly from that fund without having them go through the BEAP process.
Okay.
We weren't trying to bypass the BEAP, just the timing wasn't right.
No, that's,
I would suggest, and appreciate that forward thinking and big picture. I would suggest that we approve the project and we just approve the funding out of the community events budget line item. It's budgeted for, we funded it in prior fiscal years out of it. I'm confident that the budget can handle this request, and that'll just allow the community downtown enhancement fund budget to stay where it's at, and then we'll follow that with, with the BEAP process and so forth. But my recommendation is that the board approve it, and that the board approve just utilizing the funds out of the Selectmen events account. So just approve the amount, and I will
okay.
budget where it comes from.
No, that's fine. So we're gonna go to the BEAP coming up. All right. Then.
Want me to make a motion?
I got it. We're gonna make a motion. So, I got it right here. Too many pages this week. Move to accept and approve the request for MBA for $4,952 for the downtown holiday season.
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? Anybody have any questions for anybody? Mary or anyone else?
Nope.
All right. All those in favor?
Let's hope it doesn't rain this year.
Thanks, Mary.
Joe, hope there's no rain or snow.
So is this stuff only gonna be up for one day?
No,
Last year,
they
the
do.
roll was raining.
March,
Easter.
there's so much snow, I
Oh,
don't
good,
It
okay.
was close to April.
Up until March, we got our money's worth.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's true. Good point, Jason.
What's that?
We got our money's worth last year, huh?
Oh, yeah,
Up until
yeah.
March, got our money's
Okay.
worth.
All right, so, Kevin, can you just tell us what the whole Keno to Go thing is all about?
Yeah, so the Mass State Lottery Commission, when a establishment, an entity in the community applies to the Lottery Commission for a Keno to Go operation, the commission notifies the community that the establishment is located in and gives them an opportunity to object to such a request. And essentially, the town has 21 days from receipt to respond back to the Lottery Commission and address whatever their written objection is as to why they're not in favor of the application or for a Keno to Go operation. Essentially, that's it.
Chris, if I may, just, in the past, I've expressed concern about Keno to Go specifically in places that don't have sit-down locations because of the loitering aspect, and we don't want to create a loitering condition, let alone the fact that from a political standpoint, I have some issues with gamblings and whatever, and who it preys upon and who gets caught up, but that's a different issue. In this instance, it was interesting to see that the notice that we got from the state specifically said that at this point, they are not approving for this location the Keno to Go sign. So in other words, somebody's not going to be able to sit there and wait for their numbers to pop up because they're not putting up one of those screens.
Correct.
So in this instance, I don't have a problem with approving the request for Keno to Go, but what I would ask in our letter to the state is that we say that we, at least from my perspective, I am concerned about if they were to begin to approve the, and I don't know what they call them, the screens, for a location like a gas station, I do have some concerns because, again, it's the loitering aspect where people sit there, stand around waiting for their number to pop up. And you create locations where people can congregate where it's not intended to congregate. So with the presentation that we have here, the only suggestion I would have for the state is when and if they are proposing to put up the
Keno monitor.
the monitor, then I'd be interested because I have a real problem with doing that in places that are not like sit-down restaurants or things like that.
I understand what Dave was saying, but if you look at the Keno to Go definition online from Mass Lottery, it's made for leaving the premises and checking your tickets online.
Yeah.
So it seems to be a change to the game, right? Same rules, but it's made for people to be on the move, I guess.
Yeah, and that's my only concern would be if they start saying that over at the gas station, we're going to put up one of the screens like this so that people can.
I don't think they can. I don't think they can under the lottery's definition. I think it's
They
only
can't, yeah, as a.
the to-go piece eliminates the screen.
Just similar.
So you don't have people hanging around in the gas station or anything else. That's
The similar approval they issued to, like a year ago to Main Street Liquors was that they, that.
We expressed our concern in that
To
one.
go and that, that there would not be a monitor provided.
Right, that's my only caveat.
Yeah, I mean-
Any other comments or questions in this? Before we do the motion piece? All right. Move to accept the Massachusetts State Lottery request for Maynard Mobile at 260 Main Street for their Keno to go. A second.
I'll second. Again, are we going to send out a letter that says that we're concerned about, we just want to make sure that if we're notified, is everyone in agreement with that?
That's easy enough to do, in accordance with the Keno to go.
Because I thought it was interesting in the letter that we got from them, they said, at this time, we are not choosing to permit, which suggests to me that it's possible that one of those screens can come out, and that's what that's.
But I think that then changes the definition of Keno to go.
I think it does, but.
And if it changes the definition, then anyone would have to reapply under the new, under the new, whatever the definition becomes, where they provide a screen for those locations, and then, if that's the case, no one here wants to see people hang around the mobile station or, Tedeschi's or any of those places to watch their numbers.
I don't
come
have a
out.
problem with just reiterating that. I mean, I think expressing that, specifically because they do word the letter that way, is kind of odd.
That's my point.
Just say that, I'll put it out, no problem. And it kind of strengthens anything that they may be considering that we're not aware of, maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
Quick question, just since this is my first, term on here, is, regular Keno and regular lottery applications by any vendor in town, do they all come here as well, or?
So the application goes directly to the lottery commission.
But they.
The municipality is notified for them.
And do we actually get a chance to say yay or nay on it, or?
Yeah, you can, well, you don't vote yes or no. You can vote to.
You can either accept it or object.
You can either accept it or object, or, the objection is a vote on, which direction we want to object.
And we give the state our rationale for rejecting, and the state then makes a determination based upon the.
Right, but we don't give it a yay or nay.
They don't have to listen to us.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
It's not the
We
same.
voice our opinion, is what you're saying, as a
Correct.
board, and
Yeah.
as the.
It's not the same as the local licensing authority.
On liquor and
With
this,
other,
I got you, thank you.
Okay, so,
It's kind of, we're taking under advisement.
yeah.
Comments.
Commonwealth is taking us under advisement. Okay, any other comments, any further comments about Keno to go? All those in favor? Okay. Are we doing executive session? Because I don't have a form for it.
I have a form.
Okay,
Yeah.
when we get to that
Yeah,
point.
we're still gonna do that, right? Yeah.
Okay, economic development updates?
All right. Well, left the specific 129 Parker Street as we had them in, so you know where we've been at with that, and working with John Whitten and the developer, and the conversations that we've had offline, specifically with special counsel, and then in-room meetings with the developer and their attorney. So, as I said, you saw tonight, the intent behind tonight was, as discussed, was just a introductory for the board, first time to see, as the charge for John and the administration to go back and work up revision. So that piece is moving forward, as you know, and we'll look forward to see what they have to discuss on the 15th.
Just as an aside, I'm really pleased with the work that John Whitten has done
Yeah,
for our
he's
community.
great.
And he's been extremely helpful in moving this process forward.
Agreed. Yeah, John's been a delight to work with, very professional, knowledgeable, and I would second that. We met with a few kind of long-term discussions we've been having, again, back with Open Table and the Boys and Girls Club on potential long-term permanent homes for each, that keeping them in town, and the town's role is sort of still to be determined, but just so the board's aware that from a dialogue standpoint, we still have that dialogue with the board, from the board members of Open Table and the Boys and Girls Club, and both with regards to facility needs for both in town, and we may have some potential solutions and things to consider in the near future. The Open Table itself, looking at co-locating, moving into the Coolidge School temporarily, the pantry-only piece with the food pantry is aware of that and supportive. We've looked through it, met with facilities, the folks from Open Table, and the layout and the use is much better than where they're at currently. It is a temporary piece. They do need to be out of the mill, and it aligns with the existing food pantry operation, and the use is extremely limited. So we have discussed that with them, and they'd be willing to, much like the food pantry, pay a monthly fee for such use and impact. So we're looking to move forward with that piece. On the 17th of September, met with local business owners, as you know, at the library. There was 25 plus attendees plus the town employees. The mill and main plans were received well. Impact on the town plans for code enforcement, enhancement funds, and parking in complete streets was sort of all discussed at that meeting, and has triggered some follow-up discussions with other folks that attended the meeting, and has, kind of are starting to ask questions, and has opened up the dialogue all around, both from town hall, but also from business folks that we haven't really heard much from, or have followed up with specifics from that meeting. The Cookie Lady Treats is looking to establish a new kitchen and or storefront potentially in town. I don't know if folks are familiar with Cookie Lady. Been in town.
Elaborate, please.
She's been in town probably, well, I guess it's probably been 5 years anyway that she's been operating.
Where does she sell her cookies?
She has a big online order piece. She also sells cookies at the farmers market itself. She has a farmers market thing.
Very good.
Yeah, I've heard they're good. A variety of options.
Does she cook out of her house?
So currently she has a residential food permit, which allows her residential based on the non-potentially hazardous foods that she prepares, that's inspected twice a year and is permitted as a residential food kitchen. That requires certain requirements that, segregation, et cetera. But that's currently the operation, and she's looking to, she's expressed interest in the past, and that's sort of resurfaced again, that she'd like to get a storefront. I think business is going well, which is a good sign, and so we have been in touch with that. That's a good, one of those good pieces that hopefully, she started in Maynard and can continue to expand in Maynard. We're meeting with the outdoor store folks, management there. They had voiced concerns about the rail trail's impact on parking downtown. We were able to provide sort of a scope of the plan and potential changes to improve parking, what we're anticipating impacts. I think that request for that meeting was triggered by the event that triggered the issues with the CVS parking lot, and some other issues where they were seeing an impact to their parking on a Saturday that was, there was some concerns, and that's what that stemmed from.
The road race?
Yeah, from the road race event.
The river cleanup and the.
Well, the river cleanup
going on at the same time.
Yeah, sort of.
Vibrant community.
Yeah.
Limited space.
But the road race had the direct impact, and then of course they added, as you said, they added the river cleanup efforts the same time frame, and it created a bigger issue. So again, I know the chair, you established the subcommittee. I think the parking conversation is still a huge conversation. We have it internally. We're constantly talking about it, but I think we need to start making some decisions and anticipating that, and that subcommittee will probably look to get going soon for discussion. Let's see. I think that's it.
They express any desire or opinion as to how best to address the concerns that they have with their parking?
I'd rather not share that in public.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
they
All right, we'll get to it.
Yeah. Just a couple of, no, there's a lot of rumors going around about what is and isn't happening on Main Street with regards to Maury's and Walgreens, and if anybody have an opportunity, about 1 o'clock this afternoon, a fall lease sign went up, at the Aubuchon Hardware location on Main Street. There's been some discussion of one buyer looking to buy the whole area, knocking things down and putting something up. There's been talk that Roach Brothers was interested. There was talk that they were looking at Brothers Market. None of that has been substantiated. You know, what we do know is that Aubuchon was put up for lease today, and at this point, it doesn't. They're not looking to go back into that space. The space is being leased by Aubuchon Realty, and that as of now, they're in their Stowe location, and it's unclear whether they do have strong interest still in returning to Maynard, potentially if the 129 Parker Street project moves forward. That's where they were looking. There's been no secret that they've been looking for a larger space, a better space for what their needs were. And they were looking at the 129 Parker Street location. I don't know if they're still in conversations. Some of the management has changed with the Stowe location as well, and so the dialogue isn't the same as it was. But at this point, the building is for lease, and is available.
They had a trailer in there last night unloading all the last remnants of their stuff. Did you?
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Drove through there.
I didn't see that, but I did see that they definitely hung a for lease sign this afternoon, and that's the direction they're going in. They, as you know, they moved into the former Ace location in Stowe there, which is, I've heard, has had a good impact on some of the Stowe businesses that were already there, that Emma's Cafe, and some of those have seen foot traffic increase, which doesn't help Maynard, and in fact, potentially, there certainly will be a detriment if some of that foot traffic no longer is there anymore for our downtown. So we're hoping, we're hoping to get those spaces back up and see some revitalization. Particularly now, we're looking at an empty church, an empty Walgreens, an empty bar, and now Aubuchon, all right in a row.
So much for the theory of 129 Parker impacting downtown businesses.
Yeah.
So it's been in place yet, and we're still seeing it.
Yeah, we're continuing to push forward and do what we can on the marketing end, and we're hoping for some strong revitalization. Some of it may be some growing pains, and it may be triggered with hopefully with the Mill and Main project might. But so, as you know, a lot of that stuff, particularly the church, we haven't heard of any interest. I haven't heard anything. And the Walgreens owners, the owner of the Walgreens building is not concerned because they're still getting their lease payments.
We got something was being delivered here the other day. On Saturday.
And they have electricity on
Saturday, there was a guy backing a truck into one of the doors in the back of the building Saturday morning.
Yeah. We haven't heard anything formal at all. Nobody's come to us. If there's anybody who's potentially looking to sublease, sometimes we'll get wind. They'll come in, but it hasn't happened at all since the brewery had looked at it. My understanding is there's 10 similar locations throughout the state, and 9 out of 10 of them have been released. And Maynard is still, the position it's in, and it could be the current lease arrangement. There isn't a lot of effort, but Walgreens themselves are looking to sublet through CB Richard Ellis, and that's been on there for months. So, be good to get a good viable business back in there. But that's definitely an area we're looking at. We did get some preliminary projects potentially that could be coming with some small restaurant opportunities that might be looking to come, move in potentially into the old cast iron space, and some another area in town that they may, a restaurant venue might be looking at. So it would be good to get that back up. And then the property that is directly adjacent to the quarter deck, I understand, has been purchased, and as you've probably already noticed, that there's been an excavator in that area has been cleaned up and cleaned out. So I think in the very near future, we'll see a proposal or a project come for that Main Street property. That was the one that's been listed on the market for a while, directly
That's
next
the
door.
empty spot that was next to the bike shop, basically.
Bike shop and the gray
Between
apartment.
yeah, and the quarter deck.
I think a known-to-us business owner purchased it,
Yes.
specifically Steve Trumbull, from what I understand.
Yes. Yep. Steve has not come in.
I heard it from another source.
Yeah, he has
yesterday,
not come in and talked to us about what his plans are, but that's exactly our understanding, is he purchased it. He's already done site work for the better, cleaned up the area. There's an excavator, and they've been working there, but as far as a project, we haven't seen anything. We've heard some anecdotal stuff about parking underneath in the back there and, street level store access, so we hopefully good viable project will come in there as well. And then to that point, I think he's still looking at pursuing getting a tenant into the other space, the restaurant space at the theater. So we may see something come out of that as well. I know he's looking at doing that too. So good things. Yeah, we have some challenges, but
Are you done with your list? Or
yeah,
questions?
good. Yeah, they've, Assabet Valley, the food co-op has come in and met with us, just kind of, I think they're still going through their growing pains and understanding, they have their membership, I think it's just under 500 now. They're looking at potential uses, potential locations. They have fairly high demands of what they need for what they're looking for, specifically with dedicated parking and loading docks and 10,000 square foot space, and so it's pretty specific, and we'll support them where we can from the town side, but we have met with them, and there's still an active group. So
I have one quick question. Are you aware of any potential buyers to Gruber's that have, other than the one we knew about back probably 3 or 4 months ago that came to the planning board, that have come forward to the town hall?
Indirectly, there was some discussion, not with them specifically, but of potentially a Dunkin' Donuts with a drive-through, similar, essentially the same concept that was presented prior,
yeah.
which would have been a Honeydew with a drive-through, but there hasn't been any movement on it. They're the only ones I'm aware of. Have you heard of anyone?
There's been discussions, but they've moved in another direction now.
Yeah.
With some of the people looking to locate downtown. The open table.
Yeah. No business entity that,
Okay.
other than what we were aware of. My understanding, I think he's actually provided a hard close date now, the end of the month, I believe. I think the good thing is, I think it's now listed with a Realtor. So
With Berkshire Hathaway?
With Berkshire, so that's positive. I know originally, the owner there was trying to broker a deal on his own. There hasn't been any movement beyond that, so.
It's listed in the low 7 figures. If you're interested.
Yeah. One other question. Have you heard anything? I heard a rumor yesterday about Warriors Way. Have you heard anything about them?
Yeah, I heard that they're actually from
Yes, they
Jason.
announced that they were closing in December.
December. That was the first I've heard of that.
What's it called?
Warriors Way.
It's next door to,
Like flies.
Yeah,
the restaurant there, what's it called? The Roasted Peppers.
Roasted Peppers, yeah.
What do they do?
They do karate or something?
Karate studio, lessons.
Yeah, yoga,
Never been in.
fitness,
Weren't they there
taekwondo.
once before and came back?
They were somewhere else and came back.
They
right?
were somewhere on Nason Street.
And
They were on
Nason.
Main Street, then they moved to Mill Pond
That's
at the
right.
end of Main
That's
Street,
right,
and
yeah.
then moved back down through Main.
They have moved a couple times, yeah. But now, my understanding is that they're done, and the cost, the overhead operating costs, is, it's just cost prohibitive, and they're not, it's not like they're unhappy in Maynard and they're opening it up in Stowe. It's just, I think they're just done. That's my understanding. So, yet another downtown storefront. So, that's it.
Is that your report too?
What's that?
Is that the TA report?
No, I have quick, I'll jump to that now. Couple things from our last, the annual audit, as it relates to fiscal items, the annual audit started yesterday on 10/5. Recommendations, as you know, will follow. We'll review prior year recommendations, and that's, audit is still with Roselli, Clark and Associates for this year. It might be the end of their 3-year. Yeah, I think this might be their last third year that we've had Roselli and Clark. It is. This will be their third audit. Prior to that was Melanson and Heath. So we'll be revisiting that. I think they've done a good job. They've been very responsive and diligent in their work here. We've been happy with them. We're still looking to, Chris, to schedule a joint meeting. I'd like to get that back. We had to cancel. Some people couldn't make the last one with FinCom, the chair of FinCom and chair of the school committee, and Pete DeChico and Bob. I'd like to get that scheduled again, just have the discussion, particularly around some of the news that I got today, which, as we get into FY17 discussions, it's going to be a pretty sizable impact. And that's with regards to the other items we have on there with regards to accommodated costs and et cetera, OPEB, budgeting, all of that. But the other piece that's been added to there is that we've been anticipating the FY17 Aspet Valley High School project. I've been saying it for 2 years now anyway, that it's coming in FY17. Well, the nugget that's coming is bigger than we anticipated. It's about $320,000, which is about 70,000 more than I was thinking we were going to have to absorb, which was going to be a big hit anyway. The reason for that is some of the FY16 interest. They've made a decision to not impact any communities in FY16. That payment will include FY16 interest and the principal and interest payment for FY17. The bond rate that they got was better than what they had originally on their bond schedule. It came in like right around. It's sort of adjustable in parts of it. The average over the entire time is like 3.7, but the maximum isn't going to exceed 5, and the maximum is at the beginning. So what we're actually, FY17 is going to be like 318,000. FY18 will drop down to like 250. But it's a 25-year bond, and it's something that we have to fund within the operating budget. It's not excluded. So that's a big number, and it's a big number for the town to have to absorb on our side. I mean, given that it's factored, it's going to all be one budget. It's going to all be within that education cost center, and which is just Maynard Public Schools and Aspet Valley. But it's a big number that I'm going to have a discussion with the schools that 320,000's got to come from somewhere. And that doesn't include any assessment increases. So, the Maynard's portion ratio will be determined based on their enrollment, which, their enrollment commitments are October 1. So we should be able to figure that in pretty easily, and probably, will likely be somewhere around a 3% increase, but there's still an increase on the operating side, not even taking into account this debt. I think FY16 we've budgeted like somewhere around 28,000 for this high school project, capital project, and that means that we're 300,000 short. of which we have to carry for FY17. So, again, I just had a meeting today with superintendent and the business manager from Assabet Valley, Chris Luoto and Ernie, the superintendent there. And those were some of the conversations that we had. In addition, if you're available, you're welcome to attend the grand reopening on October 24th. They will have that in the morning. There's an invitation that went out in the correspondences. Each of the selectmen have gotten their own invitation, but you have it in the correspondences, and anyone else is welcome to attend that reopening. But any questions other than I just wanted to kind of throw it out there, and there'll be more coming with that. But
I got a question for you.
that ties in with sort of even more importantly why we need to have that meeting, Chris.
Do we currently have a school committee representative? It used to be Laura Ross, but I don't think she ran for.
It still is, so, yeah.
I thought she chose not to run for reelection. She's still our
She
representative.
did not, it wasn't that she didn't choose to, she didn't pull papers. But she wanted to run, so she had enough
Write-in
write-ins.
votes.
She actually planned to write in, because she, had, for whatever reason, missed the deadlines, or wasn't aware of polling papers. So she, notified enough people for a write-in, and so she's still the representative. Still Maynard's on the school committee for them,
Yeah,
for the district.
because we want to make sure that if, things come up with, relative to funding, granted, she's one vote on a group, but
Yeah.
that she's representing Maynard's interests in how things are funded in a way so that we're not just getting lost in the shuffle.
Yeah,
That's probably a school committee discussion with her, but from a budgetary discussion, it's also important for us to be in touch with her and coordinating with her as to how we believe Maynard's interests are best served.
yeah, agreed. They've actually, the good news, they did approve a revised budget, which is gonna have some savings for us in 16, based on, the Chapter 70 money that came out of the approved, state budget. They actually, Maynard is actually saving some money. So the full assessment that we originally had, is gonna be, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's like 13,000 less. So they did adopt.
We're already cutting into the 320.
Yeah, they did adopt a revised budget after that money came out. So I think that they're fairly diligent over there. I appreciate their work that they do put into the budget process, at least
yeah.
from a community
No doubt.
perspective. It's very early on. They have the conversations early on, and they have been very good about communicating issues early on, which I do thank them for that. And what they essentially have committed to know that they're looking at doing a level service budget. They're not having any increases because they know all these communities will have the school project. They committed, at least for this year, that they wouldn't have any increases associated from an increased budget beyond a level service budget. So they're not adding they're not adding staff, they're not adding head count, they're not doing any of that. So, but your point's well taken. On communication, just as you know, the phones are working again. That's working well. The system's back up and running, and residents are now aware that the department numbers are back in service, and no issues there. Couple of things real quick, just notes on with regards to some customer service kudos and some communications we've received. There was a letter, nice email that was provided by a resident, Ellen Duggan, about the cemetery improvements that were made, and thanking the staff for a lot of those. We've had some good customer service kudos within the offices, just to recognize some folks. That Sandra Baltazar continues to receive excellent remarks from folks that come in and that have to deal with her, and have brought in gifts that she's made available, apples and things for the whole building to share. So that's working out well on a high resident foot traffic impact areas. Also, the folks in, the clerks in municipal services, they had received comments from folks that had had an opportunity that had been in the building with regards to the town hall painting, and that it looked nice, and the feel was very professional, and also the treatment that they're receiving at town hall compared to years ago has been better. One other item I just want to just kind of have a quick conversation about is the potential. We're going to have more information as we get it, and we'll share that as soon as we do get it from the Legion, but with regards to the veterans event that they're having. But one thing I wanted to kind of throw by the board is the opportunity where we're going to have this lower meeting space potential for a vet naming of the space. It might be an opportunity for us to utilize what Selectmen De Silva had worked on in the past with a naming policy. I don't know, timing a little bit, but, there's a few folks that we know that have representation that could come. There's that Vincent, what's his name, Stigliani? Stigliani. I know Vic Tommel's brother was a war veteran that he had requested. Just something to think about. Might be an opportunity where we're moving forward with the artifacts that are being provided by the Legion for that area, and it might be an opportunity that we could kind of name that lower meeting room. It's just 101 now. But and also have somebody there that, as we do have some form of celebration down there, that could speak to whether it is an individual that's still here today or a family member. Something to think about. Just throwing it out there. Facilities, with regards to facilities management, Coolidge Roof project was awarded, and that project is set to be completed certainly before the winter sets in, and it should be tightened up. The security system, the security upgrades are being made to Fowler and Green Meadow, and under Aaron's oversight, we're looking at potentially how we can integrate into a cost savings and a more robust, unified security tool for our buildings here as well, potentially. Right now, we have, he's managing all these projects, and we have several vendors and card readers and et cetera with different vendors and different software. So we're looking at possibly being able to create a unified one. The school dude assessment was completed. We're currently awaiting results from that piece, and preventative maintenance schedules are being updated by Aaron and some of the leads in the schools. That's it.
Okay.
Did I miss anything?
I think you covered it, Kevin.
Wait, I do have one more, real quick. Just an update for Rockland Ave, the soccer fields. The project is, I've been working with, I haven't really discussed too much what we've been going on. There's been a lot of meetings and a lot of back and forth of what we could make happen out there, but I'm trying to resolve the ongoing long-term Rockland Ave water issue that we've had. David, I know you've been on the board a long time. This has been an issue. So early on, I had an opportunity to start meeting with the board from the Maynard Youth Soccer and some of their representatives, and seeing how we can get through this. We looked at different aspects of, trying to fund a irrigation system out there for the fields, essentially with some of the restrictions that are there based on the water zone, the public water supply, et cetera. We ended up being able to look at an opportunity where we could fund getting a line in from, tapped off of Rockland Ave, and a line brought into the area so that they could control and operate their own water source. And they are sitting on some funds that were made available from CPC that, looking at a water cannon, some other stuff that, and they had done some slice seeding and some other work that was approved that they'd already paid for and done, but part of that was they were looking at purchasing a water cannon. So the water line has been installed, and the equipment to supply the irrigation, the water to the field. They're ecstatic. It's the best solution for what we had. I mean, in an optimum, ideal, if we were talking about building a field, it's not what we would go with, but it's a huge benefit and relief from what they did have. Any water source we were getting out there required opening and closing at a morning and evening because they were tapping off of a hydrant, required DPW staff to be out there to do it, and it was just very cumbersome. The other thing is that there's going to be a sprinkler that's going to be dropped off one of those water cannons this Thursday for a few days, and Aaron's going to meet with the folks from the Soccer Association to look at some of the products that are available for that water cannon, which they do have funds for. So hopefully we get that all up and going, and there's still some benefit with still the fall growing season. If not, this certainly will be in better shape for the early spring. That's it.
All right, so there's a planning board hearing on the 13th. I don't know if anyone is hoping to attend it or looking to attend it, but it's probably one of those things that anybody that can attend it might want to. It's got to do with the zoning over at the mill type of thing. That changed. So
correct.
It's a public hearing. It might be, the
minimum square foot requirements.
But I'm sure that with that, there'll be plenty of other things that come up off that particular topic, just in general. So it might be something that anybody from the board that has an interest might want to attend. I'm certainly hoping to be able to attend it, but it's the 13th. I believe it's 7?
Today?
7, yeah. Huh?
A week from today.
Yeah,
next week.
Yeah, it's a week from today. Can you give us an update at the next meeting? Because it'll be like a month since Kate mentioned it, and just bring us back up to date where we are with the liquor licenses and the civil service stuff.
I will do that.
She gave us her view.
Civil service has moved out of the House. It's now with the Senate.
Right.
That was supposed to be on my list too. That just happened on Monday. We got notice, so yesterday.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll have an update.
So just to kind of keep us appraised of that.
They should both be in the Senate now.
They are both in the Senate, yeah. But the liquor license is a little further ahead.
Okay.
Might be with committee.
All right, so we, actually Kevin and I and David, the three of us were all at the fence dedication at the cemetery. There was probably, 30, 40 people there?
Yep.
Yeah,
it
was good, considering the weather.
The fence, the fence, came out great. I don't know how you would tell if it came out bad, but, it looks nice. They also cleaned up the Maynard family tomb and the receiving tomb, and they were kind of cool but creepy at the same time. To kind of walk through and see. And they also have they redid a gazebo that was in a state of disrepair that was kind of hanging out, just sitting behind the building.
It was rotting away behind the cemetery
They refurbished it, repainted it, and put it on the other side of the cemetery. And, the whole area looks great. And to Kevin's point earlier, Ellen Duggan is, a lot of people have been commenting that it looks great. And according to the people that are over there's a lot of foot traffic now that it looks so nice, and it's in a much better shape than it has been in a very long time. So it was kind of a nice day, nice time to see all that, although it did rain pretty good. But
we should be getting that.
You're undercover.
That electric utility line as well from the what's that, Fowler Street? Fowler Street extension there. From that development project as well, to get permanent power over to that facility.
Oh, okay.
For those guys, but that's part of that extension. So
but anyway, it was just
maybe that cleanup will help sell some of those homes.
Some some compliments to Chris and the staff that's over there. Everybody seems to be happy with what's going on over there, and looks great. But not sure that anyone here wants to hang out there much, but it looks good. And two other things. Can we, I know we can, but I think we should try and do a better job with our agenda, so we can have, why have Mary Branley here till 9:30 to go over something so quick, and other people, we have other people that come in and sit through the whole meeting to get something that's, kind of a,
Yeah.
much quicker, should be much quicker.
Anytime there's
than anything else.
resident, they always usually try to have that up front.
Yeah.
Like the abatements, that's why it was before Parker Street, in case there was any here. Mary, I don't know why she was here.
She was,
She's here for the,
she was added
the
Yeah, but-
lights.
we added it to the
but-
agenda Friday morning.
I understand that, but I mean, she had to sit through, not that she's not interested, but she did,
Yeah,
sitting back
I
there the
thought she
whole
was here
time.
for
And
Parker Street.
it'd be nice just to be able to move that along so people don't have to sit here and listen to, some of the things they really don't want to listen to, and it's quick and easy stuff.
I absolutely agree. I was not expecting anybody to
Yeah,
be here for that. In fact, she's not even the one that, Linda's the one that delivered it. And she wasn't.
Her name was on it, her name was on the piece of paper we got, so.
Met with Bill and I.
It's just, just to move it along, but, and the other thing, it's come up in, two different conversations tonight. Hey, I have one question, is there some discussion, has there been discussion about a bicycle lane in downtown? Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Is someone requested we put one in, or we just, someone asked me today, when's the bicycle lane coming in? I said, there's gonna be a rail trail. I said, no, a bicycle lane through downtown like they have in Cambridge and Somerville.
Yes.
Complete streets.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean you would have to have a bicycle lane. It's one of the things that is sometimes seen in complete street
Okay.
build-outs. But the conversations that have been held are about complete streets, not about
Okay.
specifically a bicycle lane.
I just know it's been asked.
Multimodal.
Yeah.
It's complete streets.
And the other,
Roof collapsed too over on Railroad Street.
yeah, just a few people have mentioned
The
it in the
rumor
past
about the
couple weeks.
roller coaster at the mill is also not not
Yeah,
real.
oh, that's okay too. But,
We are getting a Ferris wheel though.
I don't know, so these guys, the 129
75
Parker guys have it in
Seal.
their piece of paper, and according to everything that comes along, no matter who the vendor is, if it's a food vendor of anything other than a sit-down dining restaurant, nothing's going anywhere without drive-through these days. And it's, in Maynard, it's only by special permit from the planning board and all that type of stuff, but it seems like something that at some point or other, we're gonna have to consider and figure out a way to deal with, because I don't think the proposals that come with them attached are gonna go away. I mean, do we just tell everyone that has a drive-through, don't bother, go away? Well, how do we, because the issue at some point or other, I think, is gonna have to be addressed, because that's where the food industry's going. They're not, it's all about fast service, fast food and everything else, and not necessarily what you consider fast food in terms of what you're putting in your mouth, but just the speed with which it's prepared more than anything else. So it's just something that we're gonna have to consider at some point, and get together with the planning board and make a determination. Do we just tell everybody that comes in with one of those proposals no, or how does that what are we gonna do in the long run? Because it's coming everywhere.
Society is gotten lazier.
Yeah,
The dry cleaner I go to just added in a drive-through window.
It's not so much lazy, if you think about, look at the parking problem we have in this town, right? I mean,
I don't even know how you take
drive-throughs can
dry
actually
cleaner
solve
off.
parking problems in some capacity. So, there's a stigma attached to the word drive-through, there's a stigma attached to lots of things like fast food, so, I mean, we gotta be able to take things on merit and what makes sense versus making a carte blanche decision on, we don't want this type of thing here. That's the dangerous thing I see, because you don't keep up with innovation of what's going on in the marketplace or with businesses, when you make an arbitrary decision to limit what you can actually bring into town. And I think we've been very careful. To your point, we should look into some things here and not be so quick to make a judgment on something because we don't like the way it sounds. Because you know what? We're losing a whole string of businesses on one side of the road down there, and they have nothing to do with those type of businesses. So maybe the economic winds are blowing in a different direction, and we may need to think about how we're gonna capture some of that.
Are you scolding me?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Sounded like
I'm
encouraging with
done.
Mr. Chairman.
Encouraging you.
Okay, board member reports. Tim,
I don't have anything.
Terrence,
two things, parking and parking. What are we doing on the parking lot behind River Street for the umpteenth time?
Waiting for you to call a meeting.
Chief Du Bois and I are planning on having an agenda topic for October 20th on parking. Part of it is the winter parking ban, and part of it is to address some of these issues.
I had the conversation with Chris, and my understanding was, I mean, the subcommittee was gonna be getting going, and I asked what, you know, I don't know, whether you were looking for staff to initiate that, and I think you said you were gonna bring it up tonight, so.
Yeah, so,
That's kind of part of it, but
yeah, I don't know how.
we did open it up for Maynard Fest deliberately, because.
Oh, beautiful, I didn't realize, I
Yeah,
was,
But you know what? Nobody parked in the new lot. They all parked in the big lot behind.
Yeah, because there was no a lot of vendors didn't show up.
We
But the
opened
intent-
23 River Street
And it was
specifically for
open.
the
I went over
vendors.
there, nobody was
The
parked there.
intention was that, you know, we're getting this big vendor turnout. Instead of them parking in the crucial parking areas of the basin,
Spread 'em out.
we put them all, and they get there early, we put them all in River Street. So that was coordinated weeks ago. We got it open, Aaron worked with Sarah. It was open, and vendors were supposed to be directed to park there, but I think a lot of vendors didn't show, and for whatever reason, got the rain, people weren't interested in going from here to there. That's my guess, but we at least were considering it for,
The lot behind, you know, the Quinn's lot.
Yeah.
The one that is still the Quinn's lot. That was crowded with vendor cars.
Yeah.
The new lot that we purchased, no cars.
yeah.
maybe they got the wrong directions.
Well, it wasn't
Second
enough of a
point.
demand.
Second point is, the boat on Railroad Street,
It should be gone.
is it gone? It wasn't, it was there yesterday, I didn't notice it tonight when I went by.
Yeah, so.
I didn't notice it today.
I'll share my text with you,
Okay.
to the chief on Saturday. At the
Because
same.
It
the
is,
same thing.
it is a town-owned parking spaces, correct?
No doubt.
All right.
It should be gone. I didn't get a chance to go
might
by
be able
there
to leave it
today.
Yeah, there you go.
If it's not gone, it's gone.
So Andrew's on that parking committee with these three, right?
Yeah.
So can you set up a meeting, the first meeting?
These two gentlemen?
These three?
Right there, these three, I think, right?
David, Terrence,
One, two.
and.
Which means it's
and
gotta
Tim.
be an advertised.
It's got to be advertised if three of you are going to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, as at the
48
time we
hours
set it
notice.
up, I said that I could, you know, I did care to be a permanent member, so if it affects things with not advertising it or not
Simplicity is-
posting it,
Makes it easier, but
then it makes it easier. I can back away. It's not a huge issue.
I'll,
Makes it easier.
The issue,
a weeknight in the immediate future.
Sure. You throw out some dates and I'll, you know.
I'll give you guys dates by tomorrow morning, and we'll get it rolling.
And Dave, if we think we need to do like a subcommittee
Maybe
to
you'll
post
be
it, we
there.
can always post that meeting.
Yeah, you can, you know, I can show up anyway. It's an open
Yeah.
meeting, so
Alright.
I just, you know.
So keep your ball cap on.
I mean, the only difference is if it's 48 hours notice or not,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, well, I'd say whether it's an advertised.
We don't have to advertise it if it's just two.
Thanks.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So if, we'll advertise it, and then it doesn't matter who shows up.
Anything,
That's fine.
Jason, anything from, do you have any?
Yeah, real quick, is there a status on Florida Road
2 weeks.
sewer repair?
Yeah, it's not gonna take that long. No real status other than they started Monday. They're still working. It won't take as long as they had advertised. I'm told it'll be, but it's moving along okay. They hung all the hangers. They're doing the actual pipe stuff. It should move pretty quickly.
Just a follow-up question on the Assabet Valley Technical School.
Yes.
Is Mike involved at all?
In what
that?
regards?
When we're discussing, when, you know, our representative is discussing bond issues and funding, and is that coming back and going through Mike? Is that going through
No.
the school's financial? But I'm a little disappointed that we front-loaded a bond to 5%, and, I mean, that's a killer, in my opinion. That you're getting I mean, I know at the end of the day, it's 3.5% over the life of the bond, but.
Over the life, yeah.
But when you're basically throwing a balloon payment on the front of the project, and it didn't help, the project came in higher than we expected.
Right.
So now we're faced with trying to dig up, you know, $300,000.
And that was done by the school committee for Aspen Valley Regional. And that's why the point I made earlier was that our
Yeah,
representative.
I'm just asking, what's the involvement?
None.
So,
We've been waiting
okay.
for the debt schedule. Yeah, I mean, from our end, yeah, I mean, we're not involved with that. Other than communicating with them and our concerns, but at the end of the day, they work with their bond agent, they went with First Southwest's recommendations and actually got a good rate overall, but, yeah.
Yeah, it's fair. It might be a really good deal. I'm just,
Yeah.
it's
And
for us to just kind of find out is a little.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I haven't seen the bond schedule. All I've seen is what 17, 18 is gonna look like. I've asked them to provide that to me. I should get it tomorrow. But it's a 25-year
That's from Becky.
principal and interest payment, that, we got to fund within the operating, and, it was voted, when it was voted, which we actually had a pretty high student population, that's that
Got
11%.
screwed on that, that's for sure.
That's what we're paying on for 25 years. It's at the time of the vote.
It was actually
So that's not
it was
really-
actually the 3 years prior to the vote.
Yeah,
that-
exactly. It was a 3-year average at the time of the vote.
Yeah.
So that won't be adjusted. We committed to our operation ratio at that time.
Yep.
But, no, I mean, it's a fair comment, but when it comes to our assessment and things like that, that's a school committee, their school committee votes on what the budget will be, et cetera.
Just a quick congratulations to Kevin and folks who were, unfortunately, I was in the area but not able to attend the awards ceremony in Seattle at the ICMA conference. Effectively, Maynard and some of our surrounding towns got some international recognition for the Crosstown Connect.
Pretty significant. It was the largest attending ever, about 3,800 registrants, attendees. Their 100th anniversary was last year. That was the highest they had. And then the 101 was this year in Seattle, and it's the highest they've ever had. So, when you look at it from the perspective of, Massachusetts operates different than the rest of the country. This area with how we operate with home rule and no county, 351 municipalities. I mean, it's unheard of. The rest of the country doesn't understand it when it comes to local government. And, to be sitting up there with recognition of, our 5 small towns in Massachusetts with, some of the biggest players in county government, is pretty remarkable. So, yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks.
And finally, a thank you to all the folks who put together Maynard Fest and stood out in the rain and to give a good time to those folks who showed up. So that's it, Chris. Thanks.
Okay. Dave?
Yep, I'll just echo, I had Maynard Fest and Oktoberfest, we haven't met since then. That was also, the fireworks are always well-attended and well-received. Kevin, have we submitted to the DOR our new growth numbers, and if so, what is it?
No.
No? Okay. I was approached on Saturday by a business owner on Main Street.
That might have happened tonight. They might have, they had a meeting tonight, so.
Okay.
I don't know if they certified it tonight.
Yeah, the question would be how much was submitted, not
Yeah.
whether it was certified or not, because that may not come for a
Yeah,
couple
it hasn't come in yet, but we are aiming for,
Can you let us know as soon as
17th.
you know the number?
Yes.
Okay, great. I was approached by a business owner, specifically the same woman who had approached me originally on wrong-way traffic down Main Street, and she says she continues to see it. She saw a couple of cars this week alone, or it was Saturday, so it was the previous week. She says specifically they appear to be coming out of River Street and taking the left. That's what I hear, so...
Isn't River Street one way?
It is.
It is, but...
So they're going the wrong way on 2 streets?
This is what she tells me, that maybe they go in and
Well,
park,
they
they go
possibly
in and
go in
park
next to
back there
McDonald's.
at the, behind
come out
Quinn,
left there.
and
then
come back
come
out
out
and
and
take
go
the
left.
left.
Yeah.
Let's try to make it right.
There's a little bit of a parking lot immediately on the left when you go down that street. People might jump right out to Main from there too.
So
But those people probably know which way to turn.
she asked me to bring it to
Okay.
somebody's attention, and I said I would. I got a phone call just this evening, as a matter of fact, before the meeting. Apparently, there was a lengthy list of names in the Beacon this past week regarding tax taking and tax collection and whatever. And I know we started that. That was something that I think started under your predecessor.
Yeah.
We started publishing those. And there was some concern because, you know, some of these people are in the paper and they owe $32.56. The question that was asked, and I said that I would inquire, is can you describe the process that goes into notification of these people? How much notice they're given before their name appears in the paper for $32.56? And, you know, is it something that, because the bill hasn't been paid, that it just goes in automatically? Or is there a contact notification saying, hey,
Yeah, there's notices that go out and demands that go out. I don't have the specifics of how many notices they actually received before it went into the paper.
yeah,
I do know
It's
it's
things that are
certainly.
1 year
It's a
delinquent.
well, yeah, it's not like you missed last quarter's real estate bill. They go into, after 1 year of unpayment.
the concern is that some people have their tax bill paid by their mortgage company.
Yeah.
And the mortgage
Through
company may
escrow.
have missed a bill or whatever, and they don't know how do they get notified, who notifies them, and then their name's appearing in the paper as if they didn't pay their tax bill.
Well, they still get a tax bill, even if it goes
But
to.
you don't, but when I get my tax bill, for example,
Even if
because it's
escrow's
paid,
paying it.
I just look at it and I wait, what I do is I wait till I see it cross in my mortgage bill when it comes through, and then I know that I'm good to go. But some people aren't as diligent, I guess, and miss the fact that maybe
Yeah.
it never made it. If somebody switches their mortgage company to a different mortgage company and we don't know about it or whatever, and we don't send it. And I guess the concern was it was being expressed.
There's no dollar threshold.
Yeah, you can't assign a dollar threshold
It's,
to it.
it's either.
I get it.
They're a year. or
And it
more.
wasn't really just, the concern that was being expressed to me on the phone was, you know, it's embarrassing, I know that's part of the whole issue, but more so, are these people being given the opportunity to pay up?
I don't think it's an embarrassment issue, Mr. Gavin, it's a law. We have to notice these things publicly.
Oh, no, I understand that.
It's our responsibility. But these
I
people
understand.
certainly have received at least 4 tax bills,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
when we started doing this process, you know, 5 years ago or so, we collected a huge amount of taxes and unpaid water and sewer bills that had previously not been paid. So that's not the issue as to, you know, the reason behind it. I understand it.
Understood.
It was just a
And-
concern
and
expressed.
I'm not familiar with the $32 one, but most of the ones
I
that
made
appeared in
the
the paper
number
were
up.
thousands of dollars. They weren't just, a rounding error, or a
Yeah,
mortgage
it's-
company paid it less than they were supposed to, or something.
I saw the full list before it went out. There was, I mean, you know, aside from going through it, I mean, there was some that was significantly delinquent. Yeah, I don't know the minimum or the maximum, but, yeah.
There was definitely a lien one on there, I saw. I can't remember what it was, but it was probably
Yeah.
$100, as I was reading through it.
And some of those might be the water and sewer ones. So
Some of them-
their
some of them
their
were.
tax bills may have been paid, but not their water bill, something like that.
Correct, yeah.
That might have.
Not all of them are, you know, sometimes you get one or the other, sometimes you have a combination of both, but
Yeah, I can get further, other than the quarterly, you know, bill statements. I don't, you
I
know.
told the resident that I would just ask about the process and
Yeah.
how it goes about, and,
Okay.
you know.
But if it's a year out, you've had 4 opportunities to see it, you know?
And the mortgage companies aren't paying their water bill.
Yeah.
So
That's
if-
true.
if it's a water bill issue, yeah, they're receiving the bills.
At the end of the day, residents has a responsibility. I mean, even if your mortgage company's paying for it, you should at least be checking to make sure that they're taking the right amount out, right? Because you are ultimately responsible for it,
Absolutely.
right?
And your tax increases every year. So you want to make sure that the
taking the right amount of escrow out,
your
right?
escrow
Yeah.
payment is increased to cover that increase, so.
Because they'll take out a less amount, but then they'll just
Correct.
they'll whack you with
Yeah,
it, right?
hit you with
So-
a catch-up.
I was asked to inquire about the process.
I can get more detail, but that's definitely.
I was also approached at church, of all places. Apparently, there was a treadmill that used to be over at the senior center down at Clock Tower.
Clock Tower, yeah.
And it didn't make the transfer over to the senior center and I was advised it's because there was not enough room there. So there were two questions asked. Where is the treadmill now? And secondly, how can there not be enough room in the,
I have no idea.
So, a couple of things. First of all, the mill property that we vacated was 2,000 square feet. The space we're occupying in the clubhouse is 1,400 square feet. Decisions were made on a lot of different material that was in the mill. There were 3 pieces of fitness equipment. 2 of them were not working. One of them was, actually, I believe a treadmill and a bicycle were both working, but there was a third piece that was definitely not working. The choice was made to leave all of them behind because we didn't have space for those specific pieces of equipment without obstructing the ability to have other programs as we have down there now. There's Zumba classes, there's all sorts of things happening down there. There is a commitment to fitness within the COA, but those pieces of equipment weren't making that much of a difference to the overall ability for us to provide that, and we just did not have the space.
So can
think there was a high use
the
to
person who made that,
Well, nobody was using the building
can
at
the
the
person who
time.
made that donation pick it up?
He'd have to contact the mill. That property was left behind.
Okay. All right.
The person who donated that has spoken to me about this in the past. I gave him the same information. So if he's the person approaching you, it's the same answer.
Okay. That's all.
Okay. Well, we have to go into executive session now, so. Zach, go into executive session.
Do a roll call.
Yep.